Samantha Huang, a 28-year-old personal assistant, lived a life that seemed straight out of a glossy magazine. Residing in the affluent town of Walnut Creek, Samantha was renowned for her opulent lifestyle, adorned in the finest designer clothing and indulging in a world of luxury. Her presence was a constant spectacle, capturing the attention of those who craved a glimpse into her seemingly perfect existence. Behind the facade of confidence, however, Samantha battled deep-rooted insecurities and an insatiable craving for validation. Her relentless pursuit of attention fueled her personal and professional life, propelling her towards success while leaving a trail of envious acquaintances in her wake. Samantha's life was a captivating blend of glamour and ambition. She frequented trendy restaurants, mingling with influential figures in the fashion and entertainment industry. Her social circle boasted celebrities, socialites, and power players, all eager to bask in the radiance of her charismatic persona. As we dig deeper into Samantha's life, we uncover the intricate web of relationships that surrounded her. Rumors of a love triangle emerge, pitting Samantha against two individuals vying for her affections. The tension and jealousy that simmered beneath the surface would ultimately lead to a devastating outcome. On the chilling evening of November 17, 2002, tragedy struck the quiet town of Walnut Creek, California, as the lifeless body of Samantha Huang, a 28-year-old personal assistant, was discovered under mysterious circumstances. The rain poured relentlessly, adding to the somber atmosphere that engulfed the crime scene. It was around 7:30 p.m. when Patty Snarlbrook, a 91-year-old passerby, unintentionally stumbled upon the horrifying sight that would forever haunt her. As Patty made her way home, her frail frame braving the elements, she noticed a peculiar disturbance near a dimly lit park. Curiosity piqued, she approached cautiously, her heart pounding with a mix of trepidation and curiosity. As Patty drew closer, her eyes widened in shock and disbelief. There, lying on the cold, wet pavement, was the lifeless form of Samantha Huang. The scene was reminiscent of a noir film, with the raindrops falling like tears from the sky, mirroring the sorrow felt by those who would soon learn of Samantha's tragic fate. Patty, a woman of advanced age but sharp intellect, immediately recognized the severity of the situation. Panic set in as she fumbled for her cell phone, dialing 911 with trembling hands. Her voice quivered as she relayed the grim discovery to the emergency operator, her words punctuated by the sound of raindrops hitting the pavement. Within minutes, the sound of sirens pierced the air, signaling the arrival of the authorities. The scene quickly transformed into a hive of activity as police officers and forensic experts descended upon the crime scene. Yellow crime scene tape was stretched across the alleyway, marking it as a place of tragedy and intrigue. As investigators meticulously combed through the evidence, the media frenzy surrounding the case intensified. The murder of Samantha Huang had become a captivating mystery that captivated the Bay Area, leaving no one untouched by its chilling implications. The police wasted no time in responding to the report of Samantha Huang's lifeless body. Detectives Julian Laughlin and Carolina Ramirez arrived at the scene, their faces grim with determination. The rain poured down relentlessly, adding to the somber atmosphere that hung over the crime scene. The location where Samantha's body was discovered was a secluded spot in a Walnut Creek park. The park, usually a place of tranquility and leisure, had now become the center of a macabre investigation. Yellow police tape cordoned off the area, preventing curious onlookers from getting too close. As the detectives approached the crime scene, they could see the unmistakable stain of blood on the ground. It was a chilling sight, a stark contrast against the wet grass and fallen leaves. The rain had washed away some of the evidence, but there were still enough clues for the investigators to work with. The first step was to secure the area and ensure that no evidence was disturbed. Detective Laughlin carefully placed markers next to each significant item, meticulously documenting their position. He then directed the crime scene technicians to begin their work. The forensic team, dressed in white protective suits, started their search for clues. They meticulously combed through the area, collecting samples of the soil, leaves, and any other potential evidence. Every step was taken with utmost care, as even the smallest detail could prove crucial in solving the case. Detective Ramirez focused her attention on Samantha's personal belongings. She carefully examined the victim's handbag, searching for any items that may provide insight into her life and potential motives for her murder. Among the contents, she found a receipt from a local jewelry store, indicating that Samantha had recently purchased an expensive necklace. Could this purchase be connected to her untimely demise? Meanwhile, Detective Laughlin interviewed witnesses who frequented the park. He spoke to joggers, dog walkers, and anyone who might have seen something out of the ordinary on that fateful day. One witness mentioned seeing a suspicious-looking man lurking near the crime scene, but his description was vague, leaving the detectives with more questions than answers. As the investigation progressed, the detectives faced the challenge of piecing together the puzzle of Samantha's murder. With each passing day, the pressure mounted to solve the case and bring justice to Samantha and her grieving loved ones. Daniel "Dan" Tiersbeek, a 32-year-old business executive, found himself at the center of a storm of suspicion surrounding the tragic murder of Samantha Huang. Known for his charm and influential connections, Dan was no stranger to the glitz and glamour of the high-flying lifestyle that Samantha reveled in. However, beneath his polished exterior, a web of secrets and guilt threatened to unravel. As the investigation unfolded, the police focused their attention on Dan, meticulously dissecting his every move and motive. The media frenzy surrounding the case only intensified the scrutiny on him. Reporters camped outside his upscale apartment building, eager to capture any glimpse of the man who was entangled in this deadly love triangle. In the interrogation room, Dan's carefully crafted facade began to crack. Under the relentless questioning of Detective Laughlin, beads of sweat formed on Dan's forehead, betraying his inner turmoil. The detective pressed him on the nature of his relationship with Samantha, the extent of their involvement, and any potential motive for her murder. Dan's voice trembled as he denied any wrongdoing, insisting that he had nothing to do with Samantha's untimely demise. He recounted their passionate affair, painting a picture of a torrid love affair that had consumed them both. He spoke of the nights spent at exclusive restaurants, the lavish gifts he showered upon her, and the trips they took to Hawaii and Las Vegas. But the detectives were not easily swayed by Dan's words. They delved deep into his financial records, uncovering a series of suspicious transactions that raised eyebrows. Large sums of money had been transferred from his accounts in the weeks leading up to Samantha's murder. The police wondered if these funds were used to hire a hitman or to cover up any evidence of his involvement. But amidst the media frenzy, justice remained the ultimate goal. The detectives meticulously gathered evidence, leaving no stone unturned in their pursuit of the truth. They were determined to unveil the dark secrets that lay hidden beneath the glossy surface of Samantha's glamorous life. In the investigation into the tragic murder of Samantha Huang, another suspect emerged, Emily Tiersbeek, the 34-year-old wife of Dan Tiersbeek. Emily seemed to embody the picture-perfect suburban wife, with her neatly manicured lawn, charming smile, and her beloved chihuahua, Carl J. Wertheimer. However, beneath her demure facade, a seething rage towards Samantha lurked. Emily saw Samantha as a threat to her marriage, a woman who had captivated her husband's attention and shattered the tranquility of their once harmonious life. Consumed by jealousy, Emily meticulously devised a plan to eliminate her romantic rival, leaving no stone unturned in her quest for vengeance. The police, led by detectives Julian Laughlin and Carolina Ramirez, delved into Emily's background, seeking to uncover the truth behind her seemingly innocent exterior. They discovered a woman who had meticulously crafted a facade of suburban bliss, but harbored a deep-seated resentment towards Samantha. As the investigators delved deeper, they discovered a trove of evidence that pointed towards Emily's involvement in Samantha's murder. They found a series of incriminating text messages exchanged between Emily and a mysterious contact known only as R. These messages revealed a sinister plot to poison Samantha with a lethal dose of arsenic, cunningly laced in her favorite champagne. The journal contained chilling entries, describing in meticulous detail the steps Emily had taken to ensure Samantha's demise. During the police interrogation, Emily's demeanor oscillated between calm denials and moments of intense anger. She vehemently denied any involvement in Samantha's death, claiming the texts and the journal entries were a private fantasy meant to relieve her anger. But her carefully constructed facade began to crumble under the intense interrogation against her. As the investigation continued, the detectives meticulously pieced together the puzzle, connecting the dots between Emily's motive, her actions, and the tragic outcome. The police published a preliminary investigation report, written at a fourth-grade vocabulary level of the insured that even the youngest readers could understand the gravity of the situation. As the investigation into Samantha Huang's murder continued, a surprising suspect emerged from the shadows. Tiffany Watson, a 25-year-old receptionist and co-worker of Samantha. Tiffany's resentment towards Samantha's success and glamorous lifestyle had been simmering beneath the surface for months, and now the police had reason to believe that her envy had driven her to commit a heinous crime. Tiffany, with her long brown hair and piercing blue eyes, seemed like an unlikely suspect. She often wore a fake smile and spoke in a soft, innocent voice that could easily deceive those around her. But the detectives saw through her facade and were determined to uncover the truth. During the police interrogation, Tiffany's demeanor shifted between feigned innocence and veiled hostility. She tried to downplay her rivalry with Samantha, claiming that they were just co-workers and that she had no reason to harm her. But the evidence told a different story. The detectives discovered that Tiffany had been secretly stalking Samantha for months. She had meticulously collected newspaper clippings and magazine articles featuring Samantha's success, pinning them to a corkboard in her small apartment. The board was covered in red string, connecting the articles in a web of envy and obsession. Furthermore, the detectives found a diary hidden under Tiffany's mattress. Its pages were filled with delirious, sexually explicit and disturbing entries detailing Tiffany's growing hatred and sexual attraction towards Samantha. She wrote about how Samantha's designer clothes and luxurious lifestyle made her feel inferior and how she would do anything to bring Samantha down. The detectives also uncovered a receipt from a local pharmacy dated November 10, 2002. The receipt showed that Tiffany had purchased a bottle of arsenic, the same deadly poison that had ended Samantha's life. The detectives also found traces of arsenic in Tiffany's apartment, linking her directly to the murder. As the evidence mounted against her, Tiffany's composed demeanor began to crumble. She became more agitated, her voice trembling as she continued to deny any involvement in Samantha's death. She claimed she had bought the bottle of arsenic to kill herself. The investigation into Samantha Huang's murder had taken a dark turn, revealing how love, envy, and betrayal that can exist together within the human heart. The detectives' relentless pursuit of justice had brought them closer to the truth, but there were still unanswered questions. What other secrets lay hidden beneath the surface? After an intense and painstaking investigation, the truth behind Samantha Huang's untimely demise finally was unveiled. The culprit responsible for this heinous crime was none other than Emily Tearsbeek, the wife of Samantha's wealthy lover, Daniel Dan Tearsbeek. Emily, a seemingly ordinary 34-year-old woman, harbored a deep-seated resentment towards Samantha. She perceived Samantha as a threat to her marriage and meticulously devised a plan to eliminate her romantic rival. Consumed by a toxic mix of jealousy and betrayal, Emily cunningly poisoned Samantha with a lethal dose of arsenic, cleverly laced in her favorite champagne. The police, led by detectives Julian Laughlin and Carolina Ramirez, left no stone unturned in their quest for justice. Their relentless pursuit of the truth led them to uncover crucial evidence that ultimately pointed to Emily as the mastermind behind this chilling murder. As the investigation intensified, the detectives interrogated Emily, unmasking her manipulative nature and her willingness to go to extreme lengths to eliminate her competition. Emily's responses ranged from calm denials to moments of intense anger, painting a complex portrait of a woman driven by envy and consumed by her own dark desires. The arrest of Emily Tearsbeek sent shockwaves through the wealthy community of Walnut Creek, California, leaving friends and neighbors stunned by the revelation that a seemingly ordinary woman could be capable of such a heinous act. Samantha's family, though devastated by their loss, found solace in the fact that justice had been served. As the trial of Emily Tearsbeek looms on the horizon, the community eagerly awaits the day when she will face the consequences of her actions. In the end, Samantha's vibrant spirit lives on, a reminder of the tragic consequences that can arise from the darkest corners of the human psyche. The legacy of this case will forever serve as a cautionary tale, reminding us all of the importance of trust, loyalty, and the devastating consequences that can arise when these values are forsaken. The trial that ensued after Samantha Huang's tragic murder in November 2002 captivated the area, with media outlets like KGO and CanTV closely following the proceedings. Emily Thiersbeek, the mastermind behind the twisted plot to eliminate her husband's mistress, stood at the center of the courtroom, her fate hanging in the balance. In a packed courtroom, the prosecution presented a meticulously crafted case against Emily, led by the formidable prosecutor Tabitha Quasimodo. Quasimodo, known for her tenacity and unwavering dedication to justice, left no stone unturned in her pursuit of the truth. She skillfully weaved together witness testimonies, forensic evidence, and a compelling narrative that painted Emily as a calculating and cold-blooded murderer. The defense attorney, Michael Laraboots, fought tirelessly to protect his client's interests. Laraboots, renowned for his ability to sway juries with his persuasive arguments, employed every legal tactic in his arsenal to cast doubt on the prosecution's case. He called into question the reliability of the evidence, challenged the credibility of witnesses, and attempted to create a narrative that placed the blame elsewhere. Samantha's family, clad in somber attire, sat in the front row, their eyes fixed on the proceedings. The weight of their loss was palpable, and their hope for justice was intertwined with a sense of grief that seemed insurmountable. The courtroom itself buzzed with tension, as the public and media awaited the verdict that would determine Emily's fate. After weeks of gripping testimony and impassioned arguments, the jury retired to deliberate. Their decision would shape the lives of both the victims and the perpetrators' families, and the nation held its breath in anticipation. Finally, the verdict was delivered. Emily Thiersbeek was found guilty on all charges. Gasps and murmurs rippled through the courtroom as the gravity of the decision sunk in. Samantha's family, though relieved that justice was served, struggled to find solace in the knowledge that their beloved daughter and sister could never be brought back. The sentencing phase of the trial commenced, and emotions ran high. The prosecution argued for a sentence that reflected the heinous nature of the crime, citing the pain and suffering inflicted upon Samantha and her loved ones. The defense, on the other hand, pleaded for leniency, highlighting Emily's lack of prior criminal history and her potential for rehabilitation. Ultimately, the judge, Honorable William Galville Gavelson, delivered the sentence. Emily Thiersbeek was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The courtroom erupted in a mix of relief, anger, and sadness. The impact of the verdict reverberated through the lives of all those involved, leaving a lasting scar that would never fully heal. As the trial concluded, the media frenzy surrounding the case gradually subsided, but the memory of Samantha Huang and the chilling tale of betrayal, jealousy, and revenge would forever remain etched in the annals of crime history. In the aftermath of the highly publicized trial, the lives of those involved in the Samantha Huang murder case took unexpected turns. For Daniel Dan Thiersbeek, the wealthy businessman who had been entangled in a deadly love triangle, life would never be the same. The trial had exposed his infidelity and shattered his marriage to Emily Thiersbeek. Dan, now a recluse, was rarely seen in public, preferring to spend his days in his secluded mansion overlooking the picturesque hills of Walnut Creek. His once thriving business empire had crumbled under the weight of scandal, leaving him a shadow of his former self. Meanwhile, Emily Thompson, the mastermind behind the twisted plot, was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Her days were now spent behind cold steel bars, contemplating the consequences of her actions. The monotony of prison life was a stark contrast to the glamorous world she had once inhabited. The media circus that had surrounded the trial had moved on to other sensational stories, leaving Emily to face the harsh reality of her choices alone. As for Samantha's family, the wounds of her untimely death were still fresh. They had found solace in each other's company and the support of their close-knit community. The Samantha Huang Foundation, established in her memory, had become a beacon of hope for victims of domestic violence. Through their tireless efforts, the foundation provided resources and support to those in need, ensuring that Samantha's legacy lived on. The police officers who had tirelessly worked on the case, Detectives Julian Laughlin and Carolina Ramirez, were commended for their dedication and professionalism. Their meticulous investigation had brought justice to Samantha and closure to her grieving family. Their names would forever be etched in the annals of crime history, remembered as the heroes who had unraveled the truth behind the chilling murder. As the years passed, the Samantha Huang murder case faded from the headlines, becoming a distant memory for most. The once bustling streets of Walnut Creek returned to their peaceful existence, with residents going about their daily lives. The scars left by the tragic events of November 2002 would always remain, a reminder of the fragility of life and the darkness that can lurk within the human heart. Laura Wilkie, age 35, was a journalist with an unwavering determination to expose corruption. Running her blog, Ocala After Dark, she fearlessly investigated local true crime stories and political figures. Laura possessed a sharp wit and infectious laughter that drew people to her. In her spare time, she enjoyed painting landscapes and exploring the hidden gems of the city. During the hot summer of July 2007, Ocala was buzzing with activity. The city's annual music festival, Ocala Jam Fest, brought together music lovers from all over the state. Laura, always on the lookout for a captivating story, attended the festival, documenting the vibrant atmosphere and interviewing both the up-and-coming and established bands. Her blog post about the event garnered attention from music enthusiasts and fellow journalists alike. But Laura's true passion lay in exposing the underbelly of the city. She dug deep into the lives of local politicians, unearthing scandals and shining a light on their questionable dealings. Her investigative pieces, such as the mayor's hidden secrets and the dark side of Ocala's elite, became the talk of the town. The local newspaper, Ocala Gazette, even featured her work on the front page, acknowledging her relentless pursuit of truth. Laura's determination, however, came with risks. She received anonymous threats and warnings to stay away from certain individuals. Yet, she remained undeterred, convinced that the truth needed to be revealed. Her latest investigation involved a prominent car dealership owner, Jonathan Range Rover Reed, who was rumored to have ties to organized crime. Laura delved into his background, following a trail of suspicious transactions and connections that led her deeper into the dangerous underworld. Little did Laura know her relentless pursuit of justice would have dire consequences. On a sweltering July afternoon, she received a tip about a secret meeting between Reed and a corrupt city council member. Determined to capture the evidence, Laura set up surveillance near a local coffee shop, Brewed Awakening. As she discreetly snapped photographs, she had no idea that someone was poisoning her, eventually leaving her bedridden and, finally, dead. On the scorching morning of July 12, 2007, tragedy struck the quiet city of Ocala, Florida. At precisely 9 a.m., Jay Wilkie, the husband of renowned journalist Laura Wilkie, made a horrifying discovery that would forever change his life. The day had started like any other in the Wilkie household. The sun beat down mercilessly on the small suburban neighborhood as residents sought refuge in the coolness of their air-conditioned homes. But little did Jay know that this day would mark the beginning of a dark and perplexing chapter in his life. As Jay entered the bedroom, he was met with a sight that would haunt him for the rest of his days. There, lying motionless on the neatly made bed, was Laura, his beloved wife. Her once vibrant eyes were now closed forever, and her body lay still, as if frozen in time. The room was filled with an eerie silence, broken only by Jay's gasp of disbelief. The authorities were immediately summoned to the scene, their sirens piercing the otherwise tranquil neighborhood. As they meticulously combed through the room, searching for any clues that could shed light on this mysterious death, the air was thick with tension and uncertainty. In the days following Laura's untimely demise, the media frenzy surrounding the case reached a fever pitch. Headlines screamed with speculation, and armchair detectives dissected every detail, desperately trying to piece together the puzzle. News outlets like the Ocala Gazette and the Florida Times-Union dedicated countless column inches to the investigation, as the city held its breath, waiting for answers. As the investigation continued, the city of Ocala held its breath, anxiously awaiting the day when the truth behind Laura Wilkie's death would finally be unveiled. But for now, the answers remained elusive, shrouded in a web of secrecy and unanswered questions. In the heart of Ocala, a city known for its picturesque landscapes and vibrant community, a shocking crime took place that would leave the town in a state of disbelief. Laura Wilkie, a respected journalist and fearless investigator, met a tragic end on the scorching morning of July 12, 2007. Detectives Olivia Gressel and Mark Hastur, renowned for their meticulous approach to investigations, swiftly arrived at the scene. The Ocala Police Department was determined to solve this heinous crime and bring justice to Laura and her grieving loved ones. As they entered the house, a sense of eerie calm hung in the air. There were no signs of forced entry, suggesting that the killer had either been known to Laura or possessed a level of cunning that allowed them to gain access undetected. The detectives meticulously combed through every inch of the crime scene, searching for any clue that could shed light on Laura's untimely demise. The house appeared immaculately clean, as if someone had meticulously tidied up after the crime. However, their attention was soon drawn to the cause of death: poisoning. The exact substance used remained a mystery, leaving the investigators puzzled and determined to uncover the truth. With a keen eye for detail, the detectives photographed every inch of the crime scene, capturing potential DNA samples and any other evidence that could potentially lead them to the killer. They knew that in order to solve this perplexing case, they would need to leave no stone unturned. As the investigation unfolded, the town of Ocala was gripped with a sense of unease. The investigation into Laura Wilkie's murder would prove to be a complex puzzle, one that would challenge the detectives' skills and test their resolve. As the summer heat continued to bear down on Ocala, the search for the truth intensified, leaving the town anxiously awaiting the day when justice would finally be served. The initial focus of the investigation turned towards Jay Wilkie, a 49-year-old man who owned a flourishing gardening supply store in Ocala, Florida. Known for his friendly demeanor and charm, Jay was a familiar face in the community, often seen mingling with customers and offering expert advice on horticulture. However, beneath this amiable facade, there were whispers of a darker side. Detectives Olivia Gressel and Mark Hastur, leading the investigation, delved into Jay's relationship with his wife Laura, searching for any clues that could shed light on a possible motive. They meticulously pieced together the puzzle of their marriage, uncovering a history of turbulence and hidden tensions. Friends and acquaintances were interviewed, and a pattern of arguments and heated exchanges emerged. As the detectives delved deeper into Jay's personal life, they discovered a series of text messages exchanged between him and Laura in the weeks leading up to her tragic demise. The messages were from Laura begging Jay to not go near her, something that obviously indicated cracks in the foundation of their marriage. The detectives, determined to uncover the truth, obtained a warrant to search Jay's phone records, hoping to find more evidence that could connect him to Laura's murder. Simultaneously, the investigators scoured the city for any potential witnesses who may have seen or heard something on the day of the crime. They examined surveillance footage from nearby establishments, hoping to catch a glimpse of any suspicious individuals lurking in the vicinity of Laura's home. As the case gained media attention, tips flooded in from concerned citizens, each one meticulously followed up on by the diligent detectives. Days turned into weeks, and the investigation seemed to hit a dead end. The detectives meticulously reviewed every piece of evidence, re-examining the crime scene photographs and the DNA samples collected. They consulted with forensic experts, hoping for a breakthrough that would crack the case wide open. Despite the mounting pressure, Jay Wilkie vehemently maintained his innocence. He hired a high-profile defense attorney who spoke to the media on his behalf, proclaiming his client's unwavering belief that the truth would prevail. Clara Pointer, a 28-year-old co-worker and close friend of Laura Wilkie, emerged as a significant person of interest in the ongoing investigation into Laura's untimely death. Clara, like Laura, was a journalist, contributed articles for Laura's blog Ocala After Dark. She was known for her ambition and relentless pursuit of success. Mutual friends whispered about her burning desire to be the head of Ocala After Dark, the popular blog that Laura had built from the ground up. It was believed that Clara's envy of Laura's achievements may have fueled a sinister plot. During the police interrogation, Clara maintained an outwardly calm and collected demeanor, skillfully deflecting any suspicions that arose. She vehemently denied any involvement in Laura's murder, claiming that their friendship was genuine and that she had no reason to harm her colleague. Clara, for her part, pointed instead to Jay as the likely killer. She said Laura was deeply afraid of him, blaming him for the illness that led to her death. Clara said Laura repeatedly told her, "Don't let my husband near me. He wants me dead." However, the investigators uncovered some intriguing details that cast doubt on Clara's innocence. They have obtained surveillance footage from a nearby coffee shop, showing Clara purchasing a bottle of a powerful sedative on the morning of July 12, 2007. The same sedative was found in Laura's system during the autopsy. This evidence, combined with Clara's undeniable ambition and rumored jealousy, raised eyebrows among the authorities. Furthermore, witnesses came forward, claiming that Clara had been overheard making disparaging remarks about Laura's success. One witness, who wished to remain anonymous, reported hearing Clara say, "I should be the one in charge of Ocala after dark. Laura doesn't deserve all the attention she's getting." Will Clara Pointer's carefully crafted facade crumble under the weight of the evidence against her? Or is there a hidden accomplice who remains undiscovered? Only time will tell as this gripping true crime case unravels before our eyes. A major breakthrough in the investigation of Laura Wilkie's murder occurred on the afternoon of July 17, 2007. The time was precisely 4 p.m., and the blistering heat of Ocala, Florida, remained relentless. Detectives Olivia Gressel and Mark Hastur stumbled upon a crucial piece of evidence that would send shockwaves through the case. In their relentless pursuit of the truth, the detectives had been meticulously sifting through Laura's digital footprint. It was during this painstaking process that they unearthed a series of emails exchanged between Clara Pointer, a close friend and co-worker of Laura's, and David Yarborough, a private investigator renowned in the Ocala area. These emails provided a startling glimpse into the tangled web of deceit surrounding Laura's murder. Clara, it seemed, had been secretly seducing David to sabotage Laura's investigations. The content of the emails indicated that Laura had hired David to delve into the corrupt underbelly of Ocala's car dealership owner Jonathan, Range Rover Reed, with Clara acting as the intermediary. The detectives were astounded by this revelation. It raised a multitude of questions. What had Laura uncovered that was so dangerous? Who were the individuals involved in this web of corruption? And most importantly, why was Laura targeted? The implications of these emails were far-reaching. They suggested a motive for Clara's potential involvement in Laura's murder. Was she driven by jealousy and a desire to take over Ocala after dark, as rumors had suggested? Or was there something more sinister at play? As the investigation continued to unfold, the detectives were left with a myriad of unanswered questions. What other secrets lay hidden in the depths of Ocala's underbelly? And would they be able to bring Laura's killer to justice? The investigation took an unexpected turn on July 17, 2007, at around 4 p.m., when the Ocala police stumbled upon a series of emails exchanged between Clara Pointer, Laura Wilkie's co-worker and close friend, and David Yarborough, a private investigator hired by Laura to uncover corruption. These emails revealed a connection between Clara and David that raised eyebrows and left investigators scrambling to understand the implications. David Yarborough, a 45-year-old private investigator with a checkered past, had gained a reputation for his resourcefulness and determination in previous cases. He had been involved in Laura's high-profile corruption investigation, which had sent shockwaves through the local political scene. However, whispers began to circulate that David held a personal grudge against Laura for exposing his own misdeeds in the past. As the police interrogated David, his reaction was one of anger and frustration. He vehemently denied any involvement in Laura's murder, maintaining his innocence with unwavering conviction. The investigators delved into David's motives and connections to Clara, seeking to uncover any potential links that could shed light on the case. During the interrogation, David's past came under scrutiny. It was revealed that he had a history of working on high-stakes cases involving corruption and political scandals. Some of his previous clients included prominent figures in the local government, making him a well-known name in the realm of investigative journalism. However, as the investigation into Laura's murder unfolded, David's reputation began to crumble. The police dug deeper into David's personal life, interviewing his acquaintances and examining his financial records. They discovered that David had fallen on hard times in the months leading up to Laura's murder. He had been struggling to make ends meet with mounting debts and a desperate need for a big break. This revelation raised suspicions about his involvement in Laura's death and added fuel to the growing fire of speculation surrounding the case. As the investigation continued, the police were determined to uncover the truth behind Laura Wilkie's untimely demise. With each new piece of evidence, the web of suspects grew more intricate and the motives became murkier. The clock was ticking, and the Ocala community held its breath, waiting for justice to prevail. In a shocking turn of events, the investigation into the untimely death of Laura Wilkie, the fearless journalist behind the renowned blog Ocala After Dark, took a sinister turn. After days of meticulous detective work, the police uncovered the true mastermind behind Laura's murder, Clara Pointer, a co-worker and friend who harbored a deep-seated jealousy and desire for power. Clara, a 28-year-old ambitious individual, had long coveted Laura's position as the head of Ocala After Dark. Rumors of her envy and resentment towards Laura's success had been circulating for months, but no one could have fathomed the extent of Clara's treachery. The police's breakthrough in the case came on July 17, 2007, when a series of emails between Clara and David Yarborough, a private investigator hired by Laura, were discovered. These emails shed light on Clara's nefarious plans to seduce and manipulate David, who had developed an unhealthy sexual obsession with Laura. David, a 45-year-old private investigator with a checkered past, had a personal vendetta against Laura for exposing his previous misdeeds. However, his twisted infatuation with her led him to inadvertently aid Clara in her sinister plot. The investigation revealed that Clara had been secretly poisoning Laura's coffee for months, gradually weakening her. Laura's haunting words, "Don't let my husband near me. He wants me dead," were uttered in her delirium as Clara's poison took its toll. It is a chilling reminder of the depths of Clara's manipulation and the tragic fate that awaited Laura. But Clara's web of deceit did not end there. She had exploited both Laura's husband, Jay Wilkie, and David, utilizing her sexuality and their vulnerabilities to further her sinister agenda. Clara knew that Jay's troubled marriage and volatile temper would make him an easy target for suspicion. She carefully orchestrated the murder to frame him, all while maintaining her facade of innocence. As the investigation unfolded, the police pieced together Clara's manipulative tactics, exposing the extent of her exploitation. With the evidence against her mounting, the police moved in to arrest Clara at her apartment. Her calculated use of sexuality and the vulnerabilities of those around her showcased a level of cunning that is truly chilling. The trial that followed the shocking murder of Laura Wilkie was nothing short of a gripping spectacle. The courtroom was packed with eager spectators, eager to witness justice being served. District Attorney Unity Collins led the prosecution, presenting a compelling argument that left no room for doubt. She meticulously laid out the evidence, highlighting Clara Pointer's jealousy and calculated actions. The defense attorney, Esmeralda Constable, fought tooth and nail to cast doubt on the evidence and Clara's motives. She argued that the prosecution's case was built on circumstantial evidence and lacked a smoking gun. However, the weight of the evidence against Clara was overwhelming, leaving the defense with an uphill battle. Emotions ran high as Laura's family took their seats in the courtroom. They had endured months of heartache and uncertainty, desperately seeking justice for their beloved daughter. The trial became a battleground of conflicting narratives, with the prosecution painting Clara as a manipulative mastermind and the defense attempting to humanize her, portraying her as a victim of circumstances. Throughout the trial, the jury listened intently to the testimonies of witnesses, examined the physical evidence, and reviewed the damning emails exchanged between Clara and the private investigator, David Yarborough. The emails revealed Clara's sinister plans and her attempts to manipulate both Jay Wilkie and David. After hours of deliberation, the jury delivered their unanimous verdict, guilty. Clara Pointer was found guilty of first-degree murder and sentenced to 25 years in prison without the possibility of parole. The courtroom erupted in a mix of relief and anguish as Laura's family and friends finally saw justice being served. The impact of the trial rippled through the community, leaving a lasting impression on the residents of Ocala, Florida. The trial became the topic of conversations at local diners and coffee shops, with everyone weighing in on the verdict and its implications. As the trial came to a close, Laura's family and friends were left grappling with the aftermath. The wounds caused by her untimely demise would never fully heal, but the verdict brought them a sense of closure. They could finally begin the process of healing and moving forward, cherishing the memories of Laura and the impact she had on their lives. In the aftermath of the trial, life took on a new normal for all those involved. Jay Wilkie, Laura's husband, who had been falsely accused, felt a mix of relief and grief. He sought solace in rebuilding his life, focusing on his gardening supply store and reconnecting with friends and family. Jay found comfort in the support of the Ocala community, who rallied behind him during the trial. He became an advocate for justice reform, using his own experience to raise awareness about wrongful accusations. David Yarborough, the private investigator who had unwittingly aided Clara Pointer in her plot, was consumed by guilt. He dedicated himself to making amends for his misplaced loyalty. David reached out to Laura's family, offering his sincere apologies and assistance in any way he could. He embarked on a personal journey of redemption, vowing to use his investigative skills for good and help other victims of manipulation and deceit. As time passed, the wounds began to heal, but the memory of Laura Wilkie remained etched in the hearts of those who knew her. The trial had exposed the dark underbelly of jealousy and manipulation, but it also showcased the resilience of a community seeking justice. The impact of Laura's life and untimely death would forever serve as a reminder to cherish the truth and stand against those who seek to deceive. Jessica Mitchell was a 35-year-old single mother and a successful real estate agent. She lived in a nice McMansion in Gilbert, Arizona, a peaceful suburb known for its friendly neighborhoods and good schools. Jessica was highly respected in her community for her professionalism and warm personality. She worked at a local real estate firm, helping families find their dream homes. Jessica had quite the past. She used to be a wild child and a party girl, attending Arizona State University, but dropping out at 18 when she found out she was pregnant with her daughter, Callie. Despite the challenges, Jessica was determined to give her daughter a good life. She worked hard to build her career while raising Callie as a single mother. Jessica was known for her strict parenting style, frequently spanking and withholding food from her daughter in the hopes that it would keep Callie on the right path. Jessica's relationship with her daughter was complicated. Callie, a 16-year-old teenager, was passionate and rebellious. She loved Taylor Swift and was obsessed with her music. Jessica tried to balance her work and parenting, enforcing rules to ensure Callie stayed focused on her studies. Callie was a talented student with dreams of attending Vassar College, but her desire to attend concerts and buy Taylor Swift merchandise often led to clashes with her mother. In her personal life, Jessica recently found happiness with Greg Barton, her boyfriend. Greg, 45, was charming and supportive, often traveling for work but trying to be there for Jessica when he could. Their relationship brought some joy into Jessica's life, especially amidst the tensions with Callie. Jessica's dreams were simple yet meaningful. She wanted to provide a stable home for Callie and continue to grow in her career. She looked forward to the future, hoping for more peace and happiness. In the days before her death, Jessica was busy with work and spending time with Greg. She had just closed a big deal at work and was planning a quiet weekend at home. Jessica's dedication to her career and her efforts to raise Callie showed her strength and determination. She was a beloved member of her community, and her sudden, tragic death would leave everyone in shock. On May 14, 2023, at about 8:30 in the morning, Greg Barton went to Jessica Mitchell's house to surprise her with breakfast. Greg had picked up coffee and bagels from Starbucks, hoping to spend a relaxing morning with Jessica. When he arrived at her house in a quiet Gilbert, Arizona neighborhood, he noticed the door was slightly open, which was unusual. Feeling uneasy, Greg called out Jessica's name as he walked inside. The house was eerily quiet. As he entered the living room, he was met with a horrifying sight. Jessica was lying on the floor, motionless and covered in blood. There was a strong smell of bleach in the air, making it hard to breathe. Jessica's face and body were disfigured by bleach, and it was clear she had been brutally beaten to death. Greg was in shock. His hands trembled as he dialed 911, his voice shaking as he tried to explain what he had found. "My girlfriend is dead," he stammered. "I think someone killed her." The dispatcher told him to stay calm and wait for the police to arrive. Greg couldn't bear to stay in the house, so he went outside and sat on the front steps, his mind racing. He couldn't believe this was happening. Jessica, the woman he loved, was gone. He felt a mix of grief, anger, and confusion. Neighbors began to gather, wondering what was going on. Greg could hear the distant sound of sirens growing louder. When the police arrived, they quickly secured the area and began their investigation. Officer Millie Rodriguez was one of the first on the scene. She approached Greg and asked him to recount what had happened. Greg did his best to describe the morning, but he was clearly distraught. The police entered the house and carefully examined the crime scene. They took photographs, collected samples, and searched for any clues that could help them understand what had happened. The discovery of Jessica's body shocked the community. Jessica was well-liked, and people couldn't believe something so terrible had happened to her. News of the murder spread quickly, with local media covering the story extensively. The once peaceful neighborhood was now the center of a tragic and horrifying event. When the police arrived at Jessica Mitchell's house on May 14, 2023, they quickly secured the area. Detective Sarah Wilkinsbury, a seasoned investigator known for her sharp eye, led the team. Officer Millie Rodriguez, who was first on the scene, briefed her on the situation. They knew they had to act fast to gather evidence before it was contaminated. The living room was a gruesome sight. Blood was splattered on the walls and furniture, and the strong smell of bleach filled the air. Jessica's body lay in the middle of the room, her face and body disfigured by the bleach. She had been beaten to death with a baseball bat, which was found nearby, covered in blood. The crime scene was chaotic, yet Detective Wilkinsbury and her team worked methodically. They took photographs of the entire area, paying special attention to the blood patterns and the position of Jessica's body. They collected samples of the bleach and blood, hoping to find any traces of the killer's DNA. Forensic experts dusted for fingerprints on the baseball bat and other surfaces. Detective Wilkinsbury noticed the brutality of the attack. The killer had shown extreme anger and had tried to erase their tracks with bleach. This suggested the murderer was not only violent, but also somewhat calculated. The team used various tools to investigate. They brought in a luminol spray to detect any bloodstains that might have been cleaned up. They also used ultraviolet lights to look for any hidden evidence. Detective Wilkinsbury interviewed Greg Barton, Jessica's boyfriend, who had found the body. Greg was visibly shaken but cooperated fully, answering all their questions. Greg explained his relationship with Jessica and mentioned the ongoing tensions between Jessica and her daughter, Callie. He expressed concern about Callie's behavior, noting her recent outburst. This information gave the police a potential lead. Outside the house, neighbors gathered, whispering in shock and fear. News vans from local stations arrived, setting up cameras and reporters. The peaceful neighborhood was now the center of a major crime investigation, and everyone wanted to know what had happened. Detective Wilkinsbury and her team worked late into the night, determined to find answers. They knew the first 48 hours were crucial in solving a murder case. Every detail mattered, and they were committed to bringing Jessica's killer to justice. The police began their investigation by looking into Greg Barton, Jessica Mitchell's boyfriend. Greg, 45, was known for his charm and supportive nature. He traveled often for work, which sometimes caused strain in their relationship. Greg had a clean criminal record and was seen as a stable influence in Jessica's life. However, his frequent travels raised some questions. Detective Sarah Wilkinsbury and her team brought Greg in for questioning. They wanted to know more about his relationship with Jessica and his whereabouts on the night of the murder. Greg explained that he had been out of town for work and returned early that morning to surprise Jessica with breakfast. He was visibly upset but answered their questions calmly. During the interrogation, Detective Wilkinsbury asked Greg about the tensions between Jessica and her daughter, Callie. Greg admitted that there had been arguments and that Callie had a fiery temperament. He expressed his concern about Callie's behavior, but insisted he had no involvement in Jessica's death. Despite Greg's cooperation, the police needed to verify his alibi. They checked his travel records and interviewed his colleagues. Everything seemed to match up, but there was still something that bothered Detective Wilkinsbury. She decided to dig deeper into Greg's past. A breakthrough came when the police discovered that Greg had a secret habit of hiring escorts while traveling. Some of these escorts were young, barely over the age of consent. This revelation cast a shadow on Greg's character and raised new questions about his involvement in the crime. Detective Wilkinsbury confronted Greg with this new information. He looked surprised and became defensive, insisting that his private life had nothing to do with Jessica's murder. The police pressed him further, trying to see if there was any connection between his secret activities and Jessica's death. Greg's reaction was a mix of anger and frustration. He maintained his innocence but was clearly shaken by the police's discoveries. The investigators continued to probe, looking for any inconsistencies in his story. They needed to be sure they weren't missing anything. As the investigation progressed, the police kept Gray under close surveillance. They knew he had the potential to be hiding more secrets. However, without concrete evidence linking him directly to the murder, they couldn't make an arrest. Police remained cautious, knowing that they had to explore all possible leads to uncover the truth behind Jessica Mitchell's tragic death. On May 18, 2023, 4 days after Jessica Mitchell's murder, the police received a tip about new evidence. It was a sunny afternoon in Gilbert, Arizona, and Detective Sarah Wilkins-Bree and her team were at the station when the call came in. The tip came from a neighbor who had seen something unusual in the Mitchells' backyard the day before. The police rushed to Jessica's house to investigate. When they arrived, they began searching the backyard carefully. Officer Millie Rodriguez noticed a partially buried box near the fence. Bating dug it up and found a small locked metal box. They took it back to the station to open it carefully, using tools to avoid damaging any potential evidence inside. Inside the box, they found a diary. It was Callie Mitchell's diary, filled with her thoughts and feelings. Detective Wilkins-Bree began reading through it, hoping to find clues. The diary revealed Callie's deep obsession with Taylor Swift and her growing resentment toward her mother. Callie wrote about feeling trapped by Jessica's strict rules and how she longed for freedom. As Detective Wilkins-Bree read further, she discovered entries where Callie expressed intense anger toward her mother for not letting her attend Taylor Swift's Eras Tour. One entry, dated just days before the murder, mentioned Callie's frustration reaching a boiling point. This was a significant find, as it provided a possible motive for the crime. The diary also mentioned an online friend Callie had been talking to, who seemed to encourage her negative feelings. This person, who claimed to be a fellow Taylor Swift fan, pushed Callie to act on her anger. Detective Wilkins-Bree noted this and decided to investigate further, hoping to trace the online interactions. The police also looked into Callie's online activities. They found messages from the mysterious online friend, urging Callie to stand up to her mother. This friend's identity remained unknown, but the police were determined to track them down. The discovery of Callie's diary and the online messages added a new layer to the investigation. Detective Wilkins-Bree and her team knew they were getting closer to the truth. The new evidence provided crucial insights into Callie's state of mind and the possible influence of the unknown online friend, bringing them one step closer to solving the case. With the new evidence from Callie Mitchell's diary, the police turned their attention to her. Callie, 16, was known for her fiery temper and obsession with Taylor Swift. She was a bright student with dreams of attending Vassar College, but her relationship with her mother, Jessica, was often strained. Callie's passion for music and her rebellious nature led to frequent clashes at home. On May 19, 2023, Detective Sarah Wilkins-Bree and her team brought Callie in for further questioning. Callie arrived at the station, looking nervous but trying to stay calm. Detective Wilkins-Bree began by asking Callie about her relationship with her mother. Callie admitted they had arguments but insisted she loved her mother and would never harm her. The detectives then showed Callie the entries from her diary. The entries detailed Callie's growing resentment towards Jessica and her frustration over not being allowed to attend Taylor Swift's Eras Tour. One particular entry mentioned feeling trapped and desperate. Callie looked pale and teary-eyed as she read the words she had written. Detective Wilkins-Bree asked Callie about her online friend who had encouraged her negative feelings. Callie explained that she met this friend in a Taylor Swift fan forum. They had bonded over their mutual love for Swift's music and shared their frustrations. This friend, who called themselves Swiftie Pal, had suggested Callie stand up to her mother. The police examined Callie's online messages with Swiftie Pal. The messages showed Swiftie Pal pushing Callie to act on her anger. Phrases like "you need to break free from that bleep" and "don't let that bleep control you" stood out as Swiftie Pal twisted Taylor Swift's lyrics to say that she approved of violence against strict parents. Callie admitted that she felt influenced by Swiftie Pal but still denied any involvement in her mother's murder. Detective Wilkins-Bree pressed Callie about her whereabouts on the night of the murder. Callie said she was in her room, listening to Swift's 1989 album and chatting online. Her alibi seemed weak, but there was no concrete evidence linking her directly to the crime scene yet. The police decided to search Callie's room for more clues. They found Taylor Swift posters, concert tickets, and more diary entries. One entry, dated the night of the murder, was particularly disturbing. It mentioned feeling overwhelmed with rage and hinted at taking drastic actions. the investigation into Callie revealed a troubled teenager with deep emotional struggles. Her obsession with Taylor Swift and the influence of an online friend painted a complex picture. While Callie maintained her innocence, the evidence against her was mounting. The police knew they had to proceed carefully to uncover the full truth. The investigation also led the police to look into Jake Barry Sullivan. Barry, 28, had a criminal history that included burglary and assault, especially targeting single mothers. He was known for being unpredictable and dangerous. In May 2023, Barry was homeless and moved around frequently to avoid the police. Some neighbors had seen him near Jessica Mitchell's house around the time of the murder, making him a person of interest. On May 20, 2023, Detective Sarah Wilkinsbury and her team tracked down Barry. They found him staying in an abandoned building on the outskirts of Gilbert, Arizona. When the police arrived, Barry tried to run, but they quickly caught him. He was taken to the station for questioning. Barry was a tough and uncooperative suspect. During the interrogation, he denied any involvement in Jessica Mitchell's murder. He claimed he was just passing through the neighborhood and had nothing to do with the crime. Detective Wilkinsbury pressed him for details about his whereabouts on the night of the murder, but Barry's story was full of holes. The police searched Barry's belongings and found a few suspicious items. There was a pair of gloves with traces of bleach, similar to what was found at the crime scene. They also discovered a baseball bat, which could potentially be the murder weapon. Barry became defensive when asked about these items, saying they were just random things he found on the streets. Detective Wilkinsbury and her team decided to dig deeper into Barry's past. They discovered he had a history of violence against women, particularly single mothers. This pattern made him a strong suspect in Jessica's case. The police also interviewed people who knew Barry. Some mentioned his aggressive behavior and how he often talked about getting back at society. Despite the mounting evidence, Barry continued to deny his involvement in the murder. His reaction was a mix of anger and frustration. The police knew they needed more solid proof to link him directly to the crime. They decided to run forensic tests on the items found in Barry's possession to see if they matched the evidence from the crime scene. As the investigation into Barry progressed, the police remained vigilant. They understood that he was a dangerous individual with a history of targeting vulnerable women. While Barry's behavior and past crimes made him a prime suspect, the police were careful not to jump to conclusions without concrete evidence. The search for the true murderer of Jessica Mitchell continued as they pieced together the clues from multiple leads. On May 22, 2023, the breakthrough in the case came when the police finally identified the true murderer, Callie Mitchell. Callie, 16, was Jessica Mitchell's daughter. The investigation into her diary and online messages had revealed her deep-seated anger and resentment towards her mother. Callie's obsession with Taylor Swift and the influence of an online acquaintance had driven her to a breaking point. Detective Sarah Wilkinsbury and her team pieced together the events leading to Jessica's murder. Callie had recently been forbidden by her mother to attend Taylor Swift's record-breaking Eras tour. This decision unleashed a torrent of rage and frustration in Callie. On the night of May 14, 2023, in a fit of uncontrollable anger, Callie grabbed a baseball bat and brutally beat her mother to death in their living room. To obscure her identity, she poured bleach over Jessica's body, disfiguring her beyond recognition. The police discovered a hidden diary in Callie's room, revealing her obsessive thoughts about Taylor Swift and her growing resentment towards her mother. Additionally, they found that Callie had been manipulated by an online acquaintance posing as a fellow Swiftie. This person had encouraged Callie to act on her darker impulses, misquoting Taylor Swift's lyrics to fuel her anger against her mother. Armed with this evidence, the police moved quickly to arrest Callie. It was early in the morning when they arrived at the Mitchell residence. Callie was still asleep when the police knocked on her door. She answered, looking groggy and confused. When the officers informed her that she was under arrest for the murder of her mother, Callie's reaction was one of shock and disbelief. She cried and insisted that she didn't mean to do it, that it was all a terrible mistake. The arrest of Callie Mitchell sent shockwaves through the community. Jessica's friends and family were devastated by the news. They couldn't believe that the sweet, bright girl they knew had committed such a horrendous act. Jessica's sister was particularly heartbroken. She described Jessica as a loving and dedicated mother who only wanted the best for her daughter. As Callie was taken into custody, the community grappled with the tragedy that had unfolded in their midst. The arrest marked a turning point in the investigation, bringing some closure to Jessica's loved ones, while opening up a new chapter in the legal proceedings against Callie. The police continued their work, preparing for the upcoming trial and ensuring that all the evidence was thoroughly examined. The trial of Callie Mitchell began on June 15, 2023, and the courtroom was packed with people eager to hear the details of this shocking case. The prosecution, led by District Attorney James Collins, argued that Callie's actions were premeditated. Collins, a seasoned attorney known for his meticulous preparation, presented the evidence clearly. He highlighted Callie's diary entries and online messages, showing her growing anger and resentment towards her mother. He emphasized the brutality of the crime, describing how Callie had beaten her mother to death with a baseball bat and then poured bleach over her body to hide her identity. On the defense side was attorney Linda Chewbacca, a compassionate lawyer who specialized in juvenile cases. Chewbacca argued that Callie was not fully aware of her actions due to the influence of an online acquaintance who had manipulated her. She painted a picture of a troubled teenager who was overwhelmed by emotions and unable to think clearly. Chewbacca urged the jury to consider Callie's age and the psychological manipulation she had endured. Throughout the trial, Jessica Mitchell's family watched with heavy hearts. They were torn between seeking justice for Jessica and feeling sympathy for Callie, who was also a victim in some ways. Jessica's sister, Amanda, often broke down in tears, remembering her sister's warmth and dedication as a mother. The jury deliberated for 3 days before returning with a verdict. On June 25, 2023, Callie Mitchell was found guilty of second-degree murder. The judge, understanding the complex nature of the case, sentenced Callie to 20 years in a juvenile detention facility, with the possibility of parole after 10 years. The verdict brought mixed reactions. Some felt the punishment was too lenient, given the brutal nature of the crime. Others believed it was fair, considering Callie's age and the manipulation she had experienced. District Attorney Collins expressed satisfaction with the outcome, stating that justice had been served, while Defense Attorney Chewbacca expressed hope that Callie would receive the help she needed. Jessica's family had a range of emotions. They were relieved that the trial was over and that there was some accountability for Jessica's death. However, they were also deeply saddened by the loss of both Jessica and the future they had envisioned for Callie. The community of Gilbert, Arizona continued to grapple with the aftermath of the trial. Friends and neighbors of the Mitchell family expressed their condolences and support. The trial and its verdict left a lasting impact on everyone involved, serving as a reminder of the tragic consequences of unchecked emotions and online influences. After the trial, life for everyone involved in the case of Jessica Mitchell's murder changed drastically. Callie Mitchell was sent to a juvenile detention facility. There she began attending therapy sessions to address her anger issues and the psychological manipulation she had endured. Callie also continued her education within the facility, where teachers and counselors worked hard to help her find a new path. Jessica Mitchell's family struggled to move on. Her sister, Amanda, took on the responsibility of handling Jessica's affairs and supporting her niece from afar. Amanda often visited Callie, hoping to rebuild their relationship and provide the support Callie needed during her rehabilitation. Jessica's friends and colleagues in the real estate community organized a charity event in her honor, raising funds for domestic violence awareness and support programs. Detective Sarah Wilkins-Bree and her team moved on to other cases, but the Jessica Mitchell case left a lasting impression on them. They continue to use the lessons learned from this case in their work, particularly the importance of understanding the psychological aspects of crime. Detective Wilkins-Bree became an advocate for better mental health resources in the community, often speaking at local schools and events about the importance of seeking help and support. Greg Barton, Jessica's boyfriend, faced his own challenges. Although he was cleared of any involvement in the murder, the revelations about his private life caused significant damage to his reputation and personal relationships. Greg decided to take a break from his career and focus on rebuilding his life. He moved to a new city, seeking a fresh start away from the painful memories of Gilbert. Jake Barry Sullivan, the known felon who was initially a suspect, continued his transient lifestyle. After being released from questioning, he moved to another state, still struggling with his own issues. The police kept an eye on Barry, knowing he could be a potential threat in the future. Overall, the aftermath of the trial showed the far-reaching effects of the crime. While justice was served, the emotional and psychological impact on everyone involved was profound. The case highlighted the importance of community support, mental health resources, and the need for vigilance and protecting vulnerable individuals from harmful influences. Thank you for joining us on True Crime Case Files. Today's story reminds us of the profound impact of family dynamics and the unforeseen consequences of unchecked emotions. Stay tuned for our next episode as we continue to explore the intricate and often tragic world of true crime. Today, we're exploring a chilling tale from America's largest retirement community, where a young woman's life would be cut tragically short by her sugar daddy's twisted obsession. Emily Harrington was a 22-year-old elementary school teacher in Sumter County, Florida, where she taught at a small school. Emily was a kind and caring person, always going the extra mile for her students. Her classroom was filled with bright posters and educational toys, and she often stayed late, grading papers and preparing lessons. She was passionate about helping kids learn and wanted to make a difference in their lives. Despite her dedication, Emily struggled with the extraordinarily low salary of just $19,000 a year. It was tough to live on that income, especially with the rising cost of living. Rent, groceries, and even gas prices were high, and Emily found it hard to make ends meet. She dreamed of doing more for her students and herself, but the financial stress was overwhelming. To supplement her income, Emily turned to a sugar daddy arrangement. She sought out older, wealthy men who would provide her with financial support in exchange for companionship. This led her to the Villages, America's largest retirement community and a haven of sexual free expression, where she met Hal Davenport, a 68-year-old retired businessman. Hal was generous, often buying Emily expensive gifts and taking her out to nice restaurants. Emily saw this as a way to support herself while still pursuing her passion for teaching. Emily had a close relationship with her father, Robert Harrington, especially after her mother passed away. Robert was proud of his daughter and her accomplishments, but he worried about her living situation and the pressures she faced. He knew she was struggling but didn't know the full extent of it. Emily didn't share her sugar daddy arrangement with him, keeping it a secret to avoid upsetting him. In March 2022, Emily was focused on her work and future. She was preparing for the next school year and planning to attend a conference in Orlando to learn more about engaging her students in science. Emily dreamed of becoming a well-known educator, inspiring other teachers and students. But behind her positive outlook, she was dealing with the complexities of her sugar daddy arrangement, a secret that would soon have tragic consequences. On the morning of March 12, 2022, just before 7:30 a.m., Jasper Rivera, a maintenance worker at the U-Haul storage facility on County Road 466, just outside the Villages, Florida, started his routine checks. The sun had just risen, casting a pale light over the rows of orange and white storage units. As Jasper made his way down the aisles, he noticed something unusual near one of the storage units, a pile of what looked like discarded clothing. Curious, Jasper walked closer, but what he saw made him freeze in his tracks. It wasn't just a pile of clothes. It was a young woman's body, partially dressed and lying on the cold, rough ground. Her face was turned away, and she wasn't moving. Jasper's heart raced as he realized the seriousness of what he had found. He quickly pulled out his smartphone, his hands shaking, and dialed 911. When the operator answered, Jasper struggled to find the words to describe what he had just seen. "I found a body," he finally managed to say, his voice unsteady. The operator calmly asked him to stay on the line and provide details about the location while dispatching emergency services to the scene. Jasper followed her instructions, trying to stay calm, but the shock of what he had discovered was overwhelming. Within minutes, police officers from the Sumter County Sheriff's Office arrived at the U-Haul facility. By this time, a few early morning customers had arrived, some noticing the flashing lights of the patrol cars. The officers quickly cordoned off the area around the body with yellow crime scene tape, instructing curious onlookers to stay back. The victim was later identified as 22-year-old Emily Harrington, an elementary school teacher. Her body showed signs of blunt force trauma to the head, and there were dragged Devons on the ground, suggesting she had been moved to this location after her death. Emily was found wearing only her underwear, which raised immediate concerns about the circumstances leading to her death. Police noted the lack of blood at the scene, confirming the suspicion that Emily had been killed elsewhere. Jasper Rivera remained on the scene, visibly shaken but cooperative. He spoke to the officers about his discovery, still trying to process what he had found. The tragic scene marked the beginning of a complex and troubling investigation into Emily Harrington's untimely death. On March 12, 2022, shortly after the discovery of Emily Harrington's body at the U-Haul storage facility on County Road 466, the Sumter County Sheriff's Office launched a full-scale investigation. Detective Ashley Collins, a seasoned investigator with a reputation for solving difficult cases, arrived on the scene with her partner, Officer Devin Stevens. The two were known for their efficient teamwork, often handling complex cases in the rapidly growing community of the Villages. The scene at the U-Haul facility was grim. Emily's body lay on the ground, partially clothed, with clear signs of blunt force trauma to her head. The area was eerily quiet, with only the hum of early morning traffic in the distance. The police quickly cordoned off the area with yellow crime scene tape, keeping curious onlookers and reporters at bay. Detective Collins carefully examined the body, noting that there was no blood on the ground, confirming that Emily had likely been killed elsewhere, and then moved. Nearby security cameras were the first items on the detective's checklist. They'd hoped to catch a glimpse of who had brought Emily to this isolated location. Detective Collins directed Officer Stevens to collect the footage from the facility's office, which was equipped with several cameras covering the entrance and the rows of storage units. They would later review the footage at the station, looking for any suspicious vehicles or people who had been near the scene around the time of the murder. As they continued their investigation, the detectives noticed dragged Evans on the gravel near Emily's body, indicating that she had been pulled from a vehicle and left at the site. This was a crucial piece of evidence that suggested a deliberate attempt to hide the body, possibly to delay its discovery. Detective Collins instructed the forensic team to take detailed photos of the Devons and collect any fibers or debris that might have come from the suspect's clothing or vehicle. The forensic team, led by Dr. Grace Kwok, arrived shortly after to process the scene. They used advanced tools such as Luno to search for any hidden blood traces, even though the scene appeared clean. The lack of visible blood confirmed the detectives' theory that Emily had been killed elsewhere, making it crucial to identify where the initial crime took place. As the team worked, Detective Collins interviewed Jasper Rivera, the maintenance worker who had found the body. Jasper was still visibly shaken, but provided a clear and detailed account of his discovery. He described how he initially thought the body was just a pile of clothes until he got closer. His account helped the detectives establish a timeline and narrowed down when the body had been left at the facility. The investigation at the crime scene was methodical and thorough, but it left the detectives with more questions than answers. They knew the key to solving Emily's murder lay in finding out where she had been killed and who had the motive to enter life so violently. The first person of interest in the investigation was Harold Hall Davenport, a 68-year-old widower and retired businessman living in the Villages. Hall was well known in the community for his wealth and charm. Originally from Zanesville, Ohio, he had built a successful career in real estate and enjoyed a comfortable retirement in Florida's largest retirement community. Hall and Emily Harrington had met through an online arrangement, where Emily sought financial support from older, wealthy men. That relationship began with Hall providing Emily with money and gifts in exchange for sex and companionship. Over time, Hall became increasingly attached to Emily, viewing her as more than just a sugar daughter. His attachment soon turned into possessiveness, a trait that had caused problems in his past relationships. When police first interviewed Hal on March 13, 2022, a day after Emily's body was found, he appeared cooperative but nervous. Hal acknowledged his relationship with Emily, admitting he had last seen her 2 days before her death. He claimed they had spent the evening together at his home, where they watched old movies on Turner Classic Movies and had dinner from Outback Steakhouse, a favorite of Hall's. He insisted their relationship was strictly consensual and that he had no reason to harm her. Despite his initial calm demeanor, detectives noticed inconsistencies in Hall's story. When asked about his whereabouts on the night of Emily's death, Hall hesitated, stumbling over his words. He eventually provided an alibi stating he had been home alone, but the detectives found it suspicious that he couldn't provide any witnesses or details to back up his claim. His nervousness grew as the questioning continued, and he began to show signs of agitation, raising his voice when pressed about the nature of his relationship with Emily. The detectives also learned that Hall had a history of controlling behavior. His past relationships had ended badly, often due to his possessiveness. Police also discovered how his wife in Ohio supposedly committed suicide by driving her car into a lake just days after asking for a divorce. This information painted a picture of a man who could potentially act out of jealousy or fear of losing control. As the investigation progressed, Hall's name remained at the top of the suspect list. The police focused on gathering evidence that could either confirm or disprove his involvement in Emily's death. They obtained a warrant to search Hall's home, looking for any signs that he might have been involved in the crime. A search for traces of blood, any of Emily's belongings or anything that might link Hall to the murder. Hal Davenport's initial calm demeanor began to crack under the pressure of the investigation. But the detectives knew they needed more than just suspicion to build a solid case against him. The second person of interest in the investigation was Mike Andrews, a 21-year-old part-time server at Applebee's and a community college student in nearby Leesburg. Mike had been dating Emily Harrington for about a year, and although their relationship had its ups and downs, they were generally seen as a happy couple. Mike was outgoing, ambitious, and well-liked by his peers, often dreaming of transferring to a 4-year university to study business. Despite his youthful energy, Mike was also deeply protective of Emily, though he had no idea about her involvement with Hal Davenport, her sugar daddy. On March 14, 2022, 2 days after Emily's body was discovered, the police brought Mike in for questioning. When the detectives asked him about his relationship with Emily, Mike described her as caring, smart, and always supportive of his goals. He said they had been planning a weekend getaway to Orlando, where they hoped to visit Universal Studios. He seemed genuinely shocked when he learned of Emily's death, his voice trembling as he asked the detectives how something so terrible could have happened. However, when detectives asked Mike about Emily's recent behavior, he mentioned something that raised their suspicions. A few weeks before her death, Mike had tested positive for an STD, which he believed he had contracted from Emily. This revelation had caused tension between them, and although they had talked about it, Mike admitted that he was hurt and confused. He had confronted Emily, but she had reassured him that it was likely a misunderstanding, and they had tried to move past it. During the interrogation, Mike's emotions fluctuated between sadness and anger. He was clearly grieving the loss of Emily, but became defensive when the detectives asked if he had any idea about her financial struggles or other relationships. Mike insisted that he knew nothing about Emily's sugar daddy arrangement with Hal Davenport and stated that if he had known, he would have broken up with her. The detectives noted his frustration, but there was no clear evidence linking him to the murder. Mike also provided an alibi for the night of Emily's death, stating that he had been working a late shift at Applebee's, followed by a study session at home. The detectives verified his work schedule, confirming that he had indeed clocked out at 11 p.m. His alibi was further supported by a neighbor who saw him arrive home shortly after midnight. Although Mike had a possible motive due to the tension over the STD, his alibi and emotional response made it difficult for the detectives to pin him as the murderer. They kept him on their radar, but like with Hal Davenport, they knew they needed more concrete evidence before drawing any conclusions. The third person the police turned their attention to was Robert Harrington, Emily's 47-year-old father. Robert was a hard-working man who had raised Emily on his own after his wife passed away when Emily was just a teenager. He was known in the community as a devoted father who was proud of his daughter's accomplishments. However, the recent discovery of a positive pregnancy test in Emily's apartment, along with her sexual involvement with older men, had left him deeply worried and confused. On March 15, 2022, 3 days after Emily's body was found, Robert was brought in for questioning. The detectives knew he had been close to Emily and wanted to understand the nature of their relationship leading up to her death. Robert was visibly distraught during the interview, his eyes red from lack of sleep. He spoke lovingly about Emily, describing her as a bright, kind-hearted young woman who had always been dedicated to her students. He mentioned how she had dreamed of one day starting a family of her own, and how devastated he was that she would never have that chance. When the detectives asked Robert about the pregnancy test they found, he admitted that he had recently discovered it while visiting Emily's apartment. He had been shocked, unsure of how to approach the subject with his daughter. Robert explained that he had tried to reach out to her to discuss it, but Emily had seemed distant, brushing off his concerns. He had no idea who the father might be and was deeply troubled by the thought of Emily having sex with a much older man like Hal Davenport. Despite his clear distress, the detectives pressed Robert about his whereabouts on the night of Emily's death. Robert explained that he had been at home, watching TV and working on a project for his job as an electrician. He lived alone, and without anyone to corroborate his story, the detectives couldn't immediately verify his alibi. They noticed that Robert grew increasingly agitated during the questioning, his hands trembling as he tried to explain his concerns about Emily's recent behavior. Robert's love for his daughter was evident, but the detectives couldn't ignore the possibility that he might have acted out of anger or fear after discovering her secret life. They also considered the possibility that he had been upset about the pregnancy and the idea of Emily being sexually involved with multiple men. However, without concrete evidence, it was difficult to determine if Robert's emotional state had pushed him to commit a crime. The detectives remained cautious, recognizing that Robert's grief was genuine, but they kept him on their list of potential suspects. As with the other individuals they had interviewed, they needed more evidence to either rule him out or confirm their suspicions. On March 18, 2022, 5 days after Emily Harrington's body was found, a significant break in the case emerged. It was a warm afternoon in the Villages, with temperatures hovering around 75 degrees Fahrenheit, when Detective Ashley Collins received a call from the forensic lab. The team had finally analyzed the security footage from the U-Haul storage facility, along with additional evidence collected from the scene. The results revealed something the detectives hadn't anticipated: a partial license plate number from a vehicle that had entered the facility late on the night of March 11. The footage showed a dark-colored sedan pulling into the facility around 11:45 p.m., just hours before Emily's body was discovered. The car's movements were suspicious. It didn't park near any storage units and remained stationary for only a few minutes before quickly exiting the facility. The partial plate number, combined with the vehicle's make and model, a gray 2004 Honda Civic, gave the detectives a crucial lead. Detective Collins and Officer Devin Stevens immediately set to work cross-referencing the information with the Department of Motor Vehicles database. The search led them to an unexpected match: a car registered to Hull, Devonport. This discovery added new weight to the growing suspicions around Hull, who had been cooperative yet evasive during his previous interviews. The detectives knew this evidence could be the key to linking Hull directly to the crime. With this new information, the detectives obtained a warrant to search Hull Devonport's home and car. On the morning of March 19, 2022, a team of officers arrived at Hull's residence in the Villages. The search was thorough, with detectives combing through Hull's personal belongings, electronic devices, and the dark-colored sedan parked in his driveway. Inside the car, they found fibers matching the fabric of the clothing Emily was last seen wearing, as well as traces of soil that matched the area near the U-Haul facility. The detectives realized they were closing in on the truth. The combination of the forensic evidence, the security footage, and Hull's erratic behavior pointed to him as the prime suspect. The pieces of the puzzle were beginning to fit together, and the investigation was rapidly approaching its conclusion. On the morning of March 20, 2022, the Sumter County Sheriff's Office made a decisive move. Armed with the evidence they had gathered, Detectives Ashley Collins and Devin Stevens approached Hull Devonport's home in the Villages. It was a quiet Sunday, with many residents enjoying breakfast at local spots like Perkins and Culver's or taking morning strolls along the golf courses. But for Hal, this day would be anything but ordinary. The detectives knocked on Hall's door, their presence signaling the end of the investigation. When Hal opened the door, he looked surprised but not entirely shocked. Over the past few days, the pressure had been mounting, and it seemed he had sensed this moment was coming. Detective Collins informed Hal that they had enough evidence to place him under arrest for the murder of Emily Harrington. Hal's face paled and he slumped into a chair, muttering that it had all been a mistake. He confessed that on the night of March 11, he had gone to confront Emily after misinterpreting the document titled PDFILE Kids on her computer. His severe dyslexia had led him to believe it meant she was abusing children, and in a fit of rage and confusion, he had struck Emily with a heavy object. Hal explained that he had never meant to kill Emily, but when she fell to the floor unconscious, he panicked. In his frantic state, he decided to move her body, hoping to delay its discovery and buy himself some time to figure out what to do next. He had driven to the U-Haul storage facility in the middle of the night, hoping the isolated location would conceal her body long enough for him to come up with a plan. As the detectives placed Hal in handcuffs, his demeanor shifted from one of shock to resignation. He offered no resistance, quietly cooperating as they led him to the patrol car. The neighborhood, known for its laissez-faire sexual atmosphere and retirees, was now buzzing with the news of the arrest. Neighbors watched from their windows, some in disbelief that the kindly old man they knew could be capable of such a crime. Emily's family was notified of the arrest later that day. Her father, Robert Harrington, was devastated but relieved that the person responsible for his daughter's death had been caught. He struggled to comprehend how a man who had seemed so generous and caring could have done something so terrible. The arrest of Hull Devonport marked a critical turning point in the case, bringing a sense of closure to a community shaken by the tragedy. However, it also left lingering questions about the complexities of Hull's mind and the tragic misunderstanding that had led to Emily's death. The trial of Hull Devonport began on April 15, 2022. the Sumter County Courthouse, a modern building located in the heart of the Villages. The courtroom was filled with local residents, many of whom had followed the case closely through news reports on WFTV and other local stations. The atmosphere was tense, with a mix of curiosity and sorrow hanging in the air. The prosecution, led by Assistant State Attorney Laura Reed, argued that Hull Davenport's actions were the result of a reckless and dangerous mindset. Reed, known for her firm but fair approach, laid out the case clearly. She presented evidence showing how Hull's dyslexia had led to a tragic misunderstanding, but emphasized that this did not excuse the violence. Reed described how Hull's confrontation with Emily had escalated into a deadly encounter, leading to her brutal death. She portrayed Emily as a dedicated teacher with a bright future ahead of her, contrasting this with the devastating end she met due to Hull's actions. In response, Hull's defense attorney, Morgan, took a different approach. Morgan, a well-respected defense lawyer known for his skillful arguments, argued that Hull's dyslexia had severely impaired his judgment. He presented evidence showing that Hull had genuinely misinterpreted the document on Emily's computer. According to Morgan, Hull's misreading had led him to believe Emily was involved in something sinister. The defense claimed that Hull's actions were not premeditated, but were instead the result of a momentary lapse in judgment driven by his frustration with his disability. Throughout the trial, Emily's family, including her father Robert Harrington, watched from the courtroom. They were visibly emotional, often seen holding hands or wiping away tears as the details of Emily's final moments were discussed. Their pain was palpable as they listened to the arguments being presented. After several days of testimony and closing arguments, the jury deliberated and reached a verdict on April 21, 2022. They found Hull Davenport guilty of manslaughter. The jury concluded that while Hull had not intended to kill Emily, his reckless actions had directly led to her death. This verdict was seen as a compromise between acknowledging Hull's severe misjudgment and recognizing the lack of premeditation. On April 28, 2022, Hull was sentenced to 36 months in prison. The sentencing drew mixed reactions. Some felt the sentence was too lenient given the grisly nature of the crime, while others believed it was appropriate given Hull's age and his severe dyslexia. Emily's family was disappointed with the outcome, but found some solace in the fact that justice had been served, even if it was not as harsh as they had hoped. The trial's conclusion marked the somber end to a tragic chapter for Emily's loved ones and the community of the Villages. After Hull Davenport was sentenced in April 2022, life slowly began to return to normal in the Villages, Florida. Emily's family faced a long and difficult road to healing. Her father, Robert Harrington, continued to live in the same home he had shared with Emily. The house was filled with memories of her, from photos on the walls to her belongings that still lingered. Robert, deeply affected by his daughter's death, sought counseling to help cope with his grief. He also became involved in local advocacy for victims' families, using his experience to support others going through similar tragedies. Hull Davenport, now serving his 36-month sentence, was housed in a state prison. At 68 years old, his life behind bars was challenging. The prison system, known for its strict security and routine, was a stark contrast to his previous comfortable life in the Villages. Hull's health deteriorated during his incarceration, and he struggled with the isolation and the harsh reality of prison life. His family, although supportive, found it difficult to reconcile the man they knew with the crime he had committed. As time went on, the Villages returned to its usual routines. However, the memory of Emily Harrington remained a poignant chapter in the community's history, reminding everyone of the fragile nature of life and the impact of one tragic event on many lives. Kyle Ellerby was an 18-year-old high school senior from Carbondale, Illinois, known for his bright future both on and off the football field. As the star quarterback of Carbondale Community High School's football team, Kyle was admired by his classmates and respected by his coaches. His athletic talent had earned him the nickname Golden Boy among his peers, and he was often featured in local sports reports. He had dreams of playing college football, and several universities had shown interest in recruiting him. Kyle lived with his parents, Richard Ralph Ellerby, 48, and Cindy Ellerby, 45, in a comfortable suburban home. Ralph, a sales manager, was a former athlete himself, having once been a promising football player before a knee injury ended his sports career. He poured his unfulfilled ambitions into Kyle, pushing him to excel in football. Cindy, once vibrant and full of life, had become increasingly withdrawn, battling alcoholism and feelings of inadequacy. The pressure of maintaining appearances weighed heavily on the family, particularly on Kyle, who felt the burden of living up to his father's high expectations. Despite his confident exterior, Kyle was a deeply sensitive young man. He struggled with his sexual identity, a secret he kept hidden from everyone, including his closest friends. The only person who knew the truth was his football coach, Robert J. McMurdo, with whom Kyle had developed a secret sexual relationship. The relationship was a source of both comfort and stress for Kyle, who feared the consequences if their affair were ever discovered. In the days leading up to his death, Kyle was focused on his future. He was preparing for final exams and looking forward to graduation. He spent hours practicing on the football field, determined to secure a college scholarship. However, the stress of maintaining his secret life took its toll. Friends noticed he seemed distracted and more withdrawn than usual. His normally bright smile was replaced by a look of worry. At home, tensions were high, with his mother's drinking spiraling out of control and his father's demands growing more intense. Kyle's last days were a mix of hope and fear as he balanced his dreams of a bright future with the shocking secrets that would ultimately lead to his tragic end. On the morning of May 12, 2014, at around 7:30 a.m., Ralph Ellerby walked downstairs into the basement of his family's home in Carbondale, Illinois, expecting to find his son Kyle getting ready for school. Instead, Ralph stumbled upon a scene that would haunt him forever. Kyle's lifeless body was sprawled at the bottom of the stairs, surrounded by sports equipment and memorabilia, including the football trophies he had won over the years. The basement, usually a place of pride for the Ellerby family, had become the site of a tragic discovery. Ralph's first reaction was shock. He stood frozen for a moment, unable to process what he was seeing. The 48-year-old sales manager, who had always been so proud of his son's accomplishments, now felt a wave of panic and disbelief wash over him. He rushed to Kyle's side, desperately checking for signs of life, but it was clear that his son was gone. The boy who had been the center of his world, the one he had pushed so hard to succeed, was now lying dead at his feet. After a few moments, Ralph managed to gather himself enough to call 911. His voice was shaky and hoarse as he reported what he had found. "My son, he's not breathing," he stammered. The 911 operator tried to keep him calm, asking for details, but Ralph could barely focus on the questions. All he could think about was Kyle and the horrible realization that his son would never fulfill the dreams they had both worked so hard for. When the paramedics arrived a few minutes later, they confirmed what Ralph had already known deep down. Kyle was dead. The scene was eerily quiet, with only the sound of Ralph's heavy breathing and the distant hum of a television in the living room, which had been left on. Cindy Ellerby, Kyle's mother, drunk and still asleep upstairs, was unaware of the tragedy that had just unfolded. It wasn't until Ralph's anguished cries echoed through the house that she awoke, disoriented, and still groggy from the night before. When she finally realized what had happened, her screams pierced the quiet morning, adding to the grief that was now overwhelming the Ellerby household. The Carbondale police arrived at the Ellerby residence around 8:00 a.m. on May 12, 2014, just minutes after Ralph's frantic 911 call. Leading the investigation was Detective Sally O'Malley, a seasoned officer known for her sharp instincts and no-nonsense approach. O'Malley, 42, had been with the Carbondale Police Department for over 15 years and had handled her fair share of tough cases, but the death of a popular high school quarterback like Kyle Ellerby was sure to be one of the most challenging. When O'Malley and her team entered the basement, they found a scene that didn't quite add up. Kyle's body lay at the foot of the stairs, with a large football trophy nearby. The room was cluttered with sports equipment. Helmets, jerseys, and footballs were scattered around. But there was something about the positioning of the body and the items around it that caught O'Malley's attention. The detective noted that while Kyle's head injury appeared consistent with the fall, a lack of blood and the angle of his body suggested something more sinister. The basement was dimly lit, with only a few small windows allowing in the morning light. The walls were adorned with posters of NFL stars like Peyton Manning and Tom Brady, and the shelves were lined with trophies, highlighting Kyle's impressive athletic achievements. O'Malley carefully examined the scene, noting the absence of any clear signs of struggle, but her experience told her that what seemed like an accident could easily be a staged crime. As the forensics team began their work, taking photos and collecting evidence, O'Malley focused on the heavy football trophy that was lying next to Kyle. It was large enough to inflict a fatal blow, and there were faint smudges on it that looked like fingerprints. The detective ordered it to be bagged as evidence, suspecting it could be the murder weapon. The rest of the house was searched as well. The living room still had the TV on, playing Good Morning America on ABC, while Cindy Ellerby sat on the couch in shock, a half-empty bottle of vodka on the coffee table in front of her. Ralph, who had made the initial discovery, was pacing the floor, visibly distraught but cooperating with the officers. Detective O'Malley's instincts told her this wasn't just a tragic accident. The eeriness of the scene, combined with the odd details, hinted at something far more complex. As the investigation unfolded, it would soon become clear that Kyle Ellerby's death was not what it appeared to be. The first person Detective O'Malley turned her attention to was Coach Robert J. McMurdo, the 46-year-old football coach at Carbondale Community High School. Coach McMurdo was well known in the community, not just for leading the football team to numerous victories, but also for his charismatic and authoritative presence. He had a reputation for being tough but fair, someone who could bring out the best in his players. Underneath his confident exterior, however, O'Malley suspected there might be more to the coach than met the eye. At the police station, McMurdo was cooperative but clearly nervous. He sat across from Detective O'Malley in a small, dimly lit interrogation room. The walls were bare, and the only sound was the faint hum of the air conditioning. O'Malley began the interview by asking McMurdo about his relationship with Kyle. The coach spoke fondly of the young man, describing him as one of the most talented and dedicated players he had ever coached. With that body of his, Kyle had a natural gift, McMurdo said, his voice trembling slightly. He could read the field like no one else. I had big plans for him. But when O'Malley pressed further, asking if their relationship extended beyond the football field, McMurdo hesitated. His discomfort was palpable as he struggled to maintain his composure. He admitted he cared about Kyle, but only as a coach cares for any of his players. O'Malley wasn't convinced. She could see the guilt in his eyes, the fear of something being exposed. She then asked directly about any sexual relationship between him and Kyle, a question that made McMurdo visibly tense. His denial was immediate, but there was a quiver in his voice that O'Malley couldn't ignore. The detective then shifted the conversation to the morning of Kyle's death, asking McMurdo about his whereabouts and whether he had any contact with Kyle that day. The coach insisted he was at home preparing for practice and hadn't spoken to Kyle since the previous day. However, when O'Malley presented him with a record of sexually explicit text messages and naked pictures sent between him and Kyle, sent late the night before, McMurdo's calm demeanor began to crack. McMurdo's face went pale as he realized the evidence against him was mounting. He had a body like Adonis, he exclaimed. Robert told police he was conflicted by his romantic relationship with Kyle, which turned sexual after watching Kyle shower after a practice. He said he genuinely loved the young man, but he knew the consequences if their affair were ever discovered. Throughout the interrogation, McMurdo maintained his innocence, but his nervousness only grew. He repeatedly wiped his forehead with a handkerchief, his hands shaking slightly. Despite his efforts to appear in control, it was clear that the pressure was getting to him. O'Malley knew she had rattled him, but she also knew that without a confession or more concrete evidence, she couldn't arrest him just yet. The interrogation ended with McMurdo being released, but not before O'Malley made it clear that he was now a prime suspect in the investigation. Next, Detective Sally O'Malley turned her attention to Richard Ralph Ellerby, Kyle's 48-year-old father. Ralph was a sales manager at a local auto dealership and a well-known figure in Carbondale. He had a reputation as a proud, ambitious man who lived vicariously through his son's accomplishments. Once a star high school athlete himself, Ralph's football career was cut short by a knee injury. He had channeled all his unfulfilled dreams into Kyle, pushing him to excel on the football field. On the morning of Kyle's death, Ralph's reaction was intense. He was visibly distressed and kept asking the officers what had happened to his son. According to witnesses, he seemed more agitated than heartbroken. His concern focused on how this tragedy might affect Kyle's legacy and the family's reputation. During his interview with O'Malley, Ralph was cooperative but defensive. He spoke proudly of Kyle's achievements, emphasizing how much he had invested in his son's future. Kyle was destined for greatness, Ralph said, his voice thick with emotion. He was gonna go all the way to the NFL, and I was going to make sure of it. But as the conversation shifted to Kyle's personal life, Ralph's tone changed. He became evasive, particularly when O'Malley asked about Kyle's relationship with Coach McMurdo. O'Malley had already discovered that Ralph's and McMurdo's relationship was sexual. Ralph often attended practices, games, and even team meetings where he and the coach would discuss Kyle's progress and future. When asked if he knew about Kyle's sexual involvement with McMurdo, Ralph hesitated. He eventually admitted that he had heard rumors but insisted he didn't believe them. However, O'Malley wasn't entirely convinced. She had evidence suggesting that Ralph knew more than he was letting on. Text messages between Ralph and McMurdo, found on Ralph's phone, vividly showed that he was aware of the relationship between his son and the coach, even planning dates for him and offering to be a lookout. In one exchange, Ralph even congratulated the coach, telling him that his sex with Kyle must have been behind his 3 touchdowns during a previous game. Despite Ralph's efforts to appear calm and collected, O'Malley noticed cracks in his composure. His voice would occasionally waver, and he seemed unusually anxious when discussing certain topics. The detective suspected that Ralph's deep-seated homophobia and fear of scandal had created a volatile mix of emotions that he was struggling to keep under control. As the interview concluded, O'Malley couldn't shake the feeling that Ralph was hiding something. His refusal to fully acknowledge the possibility of his son's involvement with Coach McMurdo, coupled with his obvious discomfort, made him a person of interest in the ongoing investigation. The final suspect on Detective Sally O'Malley's list was Cindy Ellerby, Kyle's 45-year-old mother. Cindy had once been a vibrant woman, a formed teen beauty queen with a lively personality. But by May of 2014, she had become a shadow of her former self, struggling with alcoholism and deep-seated feelings of sexual inadequacy. Her marriage to Ralph had grown strained and loveless, and she often felt overlooked in her own home, especially as Ralph focused all his attention on Kyle's football career. Cindy's descent into alcohol abuse had become well known in the community. Neighbors frequently saw her at the local liquor store, often buying bottles of cheap vodka. Her drinking had escalated to the point where she was rarely sober, leading to erratic behavior that further isolated her from friends and family. Cindy's relationship with Kyle had also deteriorated. She resented the pressure placed on him by Ralph and was deeply jealous of the close bond between Kyle and his father. On the morning of Kyle's death, Cindy had been at home. When the police arrived, they found her in a state of hysteria, alternating between sobbing uncontrollably and shouting incoherently. Her disheveled appearance and the smell of alcohol on her breath raised immediate concerns among the officers on the scene. During her interview with Detective O'Malley, Cindy was unstable and emotional. She fluctuated between anger and sadness, her responses often incoherent. O'Malley asked about Cindy's relationship with Kyle, and Cindy's answers were evasive. "Kyle was my baby," she said repeatedly, but when pressed for details about their interactions in the days leading up to his death, she struggled to provide clear answers. O'Malley also inquired about Cindy's relationship with Coach McMurdo. Cindy's reaction was telling. Her face twisted in anger, and she accused her son of taking away Coach McMurdo from her. Kyle had the mind of a hussy and the body of Tom Brady. She spat out, her words dripping with bitterness. "Why did he have to take my man?" As the interview progressed, Cindy became increasingly agitated, especially when O'Malley suggested that Kyle's death might not have been an accident. Cindy's mood swings and erratic behavior made it difficult to get a coherent narrative from her. However, O'Malley noted that Cindy's anger toward McMurdo and her jealousy of Kyle's relationship with his father seemed to be driving her emotional outbursts. Despite her unstable demeanor, Cindy remained a person of interest. O'Malley couldn't ignore the possibility that Cindy's deep-seated resentments and her deteriorating mental state might have played a role in Kyle's death. The detective left the interview with more questions than answers. But one thing was clear. Cindy Ellerby's troubled past and volatile emotions made her a key figure in this tragic case. On May 18, 2014, just a week after Kyle Ellerby's tragic death, a startling new development shook the town of Carbondale. It happened during Kyle's memorial service, held at the local high school gymnasium, where hundreds of mourners gathered to pay their respects. The atmosphere was heavy with grief, but it was Ralph Ellerby's unexpected outburst that left everyone in shock. Ralph, visibly intoxicated and overcome with emotion, stood up in the middle of the service. His words were slurred, but the message was clear. He confessed to knowing that his wife, Cindy Ellerby, had killed their son. Ralph revealed that he had helped Cindy stage the scene to look like an accident in a desperate attempt to protect their family from scandal. The crowd was stunned into silence, unable to process the magnitude of his admission. Detective Sally O'Malley, who had been attending the service to observe the family's behavior, immediately knew the investigation had just taken a critical turn. After Ralph's confession, the Carbondale Police Department quickly responded, taking Ralph into custody for further questioning. The police returned to the Ellerby household, this time with a clearer understanding of what they were looking for. Inside the home, they revisited the basement where Kyle's body had been found. With Ralph's confession in mind, the officers searched for any evidence that could corroborate his story. They discovered traces of blood that had been poorly cleaned, as well as additional fragments of the shattered trophy that had been missed during the initial investigation. Forensic experts re-examined the evidence, confirming that the blood found at the scene matched Kyle's DNA. Ralph's confession, combined with the physical evidence, painted a grim picture of the events leading up to Kyle's death. It was now evident that Cindy had struck Kyle with the trophy in a fit of rage, and that Ralph had assisted her in covering up the crime. The community was left reeling from Ralph's shocking revelation. What had once been seen as a tragic accident was now understood to be a brutal murder, meticulously concealed by the very people who should have protected Kyle the most. This new evidence and Ralph's confession brought the investigation to a critical juncture, setting the stage for a shocking arrest. Following Ralph Ellerby's shocking confession at his son Kyle's memorial service, the Carbondale Police Department wasted no time in moving forward with the investigation. On May 20, 2014, just 48 hours after Ralph's admission, the police officially identified Cindy Ellerby as the prime suspect in Kyle's murder. Cindy, a 45-year-old homemaker struggling with alcoholism, had long been a troubled figure in the community. Her erratic behavior and strained relationship with Kyle had not gone unnoticed by neighbors and friends, but the truth of her involvement in his death was still a bitter pill for many to swallow. Detective Sally O'Malley led the charge to bring Cindy into custody. The team assembled at the Ellerby household early that morning. The atmosphere was tense, with overcast skies matching the somber mood of the officers. When they arrived at the door, Cindy answered, looking disheveled and weary, as if she had aged years in the days since the memorial. Without much resistance, Cindy was placed under arrest. The weight of the moment seemed to hit her all at once, and she broke down in tears, not out of surprise, but out of resignation. She knew that the truth had finally caught up with her. As Cindy was escorted to the police car, the neighborhood was eerily quiet, with only the distant hum of morning traffic breaking the silence. Inside the station, she was formally charged with the murder of her son, Kyle Ellerby. During her initial interrogation, Cindy was emotional but cooperative, providing a detailed account of the events leading up to the murder. She admitted that on the night of Kyle's death, she had been drinking heavily. An argument with Kyle had escalated, fueled by her smoldering jealousy over his sexual relationship with Coach Rimerdo. In a blind rage, she grabbed one of Kyle's football trophies and struck him with it, killing him instantly. Cindy explained how Ralph, upon discovering what she had done, decided to help her stage the scene as an accident. Together, they dragged Kyle's body to the bottom of the basement stairs and scattered sports equipment around to make it appear as though he had fallen. Ralph had hoped that this would keep their family's dark secret hidden, but his conscience ultimately betrayed him. The arrest of Cindy Ellerby sent shockwaves through the community. For the Ellerby family, once admired for their success and unity, the reality of their downfall was now laid bare. The reactions of those close to Kyle were a mix of anger, sorrow, and disbelief. A struggle to comprehend how a mother could commit such a heinous act against her own child. Cindy Ellerby's trial for the murder of her son, Kyle Ellerby, began in late August 2014 at the Jackson County Courthouse in Carbondale, Illinois. The case quickly became the talk of the town, with local media outlets like the Southern Illinoisan covering every detail. The courtroom was packed with spectators, many of whom had known the Ellerby family for years and were eager to see justice served. The prosecution, led by District Attorney Mark Armthorpe, a seasoned 50-year-old attorney known for his tough stance on violent crimes, argued that Cindy's actions were premeditated. He painted a picture of a woman consumed by jealousy and anger, unable to cope with her son's relationship with Coach Robert J. Rimerdo. Armthorpe emphasized the brutality of the crime, noting that Cindy had not only killed her son but had also gone to great lengths to cover up the murder with the help of her husband, Ralph. The prosecution's case was bolstered by forensic evidence and Ralph's confession, both of which left little room for doubt. On the defense side, attorney Linda Caldwell Blankenship, a 45-year-old public defender with a reputation for taking on difficult cases, argued that Cindy's actions were not premeditated but rather the result of a momentary lapse in judgment fueled by alcohol and emotional distress. Caldwell Blankenship sought to portray Cindy as a victim of her circumstances, a woman struggling with addiction and mental health issues, overwhelmed by the pressures of her life. She pleaded for leniency, arguing that Cindy's actions were not those of a cold-blooded killer, but of a deeply troubled individual who needed help, not harsh punishment. Throughout the trial, Kyle's friends and teammates attended in support of the Ellerby family, their faces reflecting the pain and confusion of losing a beloved friend under such tragic circumstances. The jury deliberated for just 2 days before returning with a verdict: guilty of second-degree murder. Cindy Ellerby was sentenced to 25 years in prison without the possibility of parole. The verdict brought some measure of closure to Kyle's friends and family, but the impact of the trial was profound. Cindy's sentencing left the community divided. Some felt that justice had been served, while others believed the punishment was too harsh for a woman who had clearly been struggling with her own demons. For Ralph Ellerby, the trial marked the final unraveling of his family, leaving him to face the consequences of his own complicity in Kyle's death. In the aftermath of Cindy Ellerby's trial, life in Carbondale, Illinois would never be the same for those involved. Cindy, now serving a 25-year sentence at Logan Correctional Center, had little contact with the outside world. Her time in prison was marked by isolation and regret as she grappled with the consequences of her actions. The once vibrant woman who had been a familiar face at high school football games was now a shadow of her former self, lost in the routine of prison life. Ralph Ellerby, Kyle's father, was left to pick up the pieces of his shattered life. He sold the family home, unable to bear living in the place where his son had died. Ralph moved to a small apartment on the outskirts of town, where he continued to struggle with his guilt. He had lost not only his son and wife, but also the respect of the community. Ralph, who had once been a prominent figure in Carbondale, found himself alienated and alone, with only his memories for company. His battle with alcohol worsened, and he rarely left his apartment, becoming a recluse. Coach Robert J. McMurdo, who had been at the center of the scandal, resigned from his position at the high school. The revelation of his relationship with Kyle Ellerby had destroyed his career. Despite never being charged with a crime, the damage to his reputation was irreversible. McMurdo moved out of state, trying to rebuild his life in anonymity. However, the stigma followed him, and he found it difficult to escape the shadows of his past. He took on low-profile jobs, avoiding any roles that would put him back in the public eye. The community of Carbondale, once united in support of the Ellerby family, was left divided and disillusioned. The trial had exposed the darker side of the town, shattering the image of a perfect community. In the years that followed, the memory of Kyle Ellerby's tragic death lingered, a reminder of the secrets that can tear a family and a town apart. Cody McAllister was a 29-year-old software developer working at Cisco in Santa Rosa, California. He was known for his dry wit, his love of classic cars, and his attention to detail. His friends described him as both a bit of a perfectionist and someone with a warm, caring side. He was proud of his career at Cisco, and with Silicon Valley booming in 2019, Cody's future looked bright. He was the oldest of 2 siblings, with a younger sister named Rachel. The two had always had a complicated relationship, with Rachel's rebellious nature and twin drug and alcohol addictions clashing against Cody's sober, structured life. Despite their differences, Cody had always tried to support his sister, especially when their parents passed away a few years earlier. Cody had always wanted to find the perfect partner, and in early 2019, he finally found her in Lily, a freelance fashion designer. Their relationship was intense and moved fast. Within months, they were married. Friends and family were surprised at how quickly everything happened. Cody was usually more careful, but he believed he had found the one. Lily was calm, stylish, and creative, a stark contrast to Cody's tech-focused world where a clean hoodie was the height of fashion. The two seemed like a perfect match on the outside, but there were signs of trouble that Cody's close friends noticed. He seemed more anxious in the days leading up to his death, though no one could put their finger on why. In the days before he died, Cody was still going about his usual routine. He worked late on some big projects for Cisco and had been chatting excitedly with friends about an upcoming trip he was planning for his first wedding anniversary with Lily. They were looking at places like Napa Valley or maybe a quiet weekend in Carmel by the Sea. Cody had also been thinking about the future, possibly starting a family, buying a bigger house, and settling down. But there were also private struggles that Cody was dealing with. He had always had trust issues in relationships, and there were rumors that his marriage wasn't as perfect as it seemed. Still, Cody seemed hopeful that things would improve and that his new life with Lily was the fresh start he had been waiting for. It was the morning of November 18, 2019, when Cody McAllister's body was discovered. At around 7:30 a.m., Lily McAllister, Cuddy's wife, called 911 saying she had found her husband dead in their condo. The couple lived in a modern, upscale unit in a trendy part of San Jose, not far from Santana Row, an area known for its high-end shops and restaurants. Lily had woken up early and realized Cuddy wasn't in bed. She told police that after searching the apartment, she found him in the laundry room. When Lily found Cuddy, he was lying on the floor in a pool of blood. His body had multiple stab wounds, with the fatal blow being to his chest. His arms were limp at his sides and cut up, and the laundry room was in disarray, with clothes scattered around, signaling a violent struggle had taken place. The washer and dryer, both high-end models, were splattered with blood and smelled like old meat rather than clean clothes. Lily was described as calm when she spoke to the 911 operator, though she sounded shaky at times, clearly in shock from what she had found. The first responders arrived within minutes of the call. Officer Mark Tran was the first on the scene, followed closely by his partner, Officer Emily Reyes. They quickly secured the area and began checking for signs of life. Unfortunately, Cuddy was already cold to the touch. Lily was taken outside and questioned briefly by Officer Reyes, who noted that while Lily appeared upset, she wasn't crying and seemed distant. The officers then called for backup, and the crime scene investigation team arrived shortly after. Neighbors later told reporters that they hadn't heard anything unusual that morning. The walls in the condo building were thick, and it wasn't uncommon for city noise to drown out the sounds from nearby apartments. The couple was relatively new to the building, so no one knew them well, but most described Cuddy as polite and quiet. They hadn't seen much of Lily, but one neighbor, an older woman who lived across the hall, said she had seen her at the grocery store just the day before. By the time detectives arrived, the building was cordoned off with yellow police tape, and the investigation was in full swing. Cuddy's body was taken to the coroner's office, and Lily was brought in for questioning. No one could have guessed at the secrets that were about to come to light. The San Jose Police Department arrived swiftly after Lily McAllister's 911 call on the morning of November 18, 2019. Detectives James O'Brien and Lisa Chang, both veterans with the department, were assigned to the case. O'Brien was known for his methodical approach and no-nonsense attitude, while Chang had a reputation for being sharp and detail-oriented. Together, they walked into the upscale condo, ready to piece together what had happened to Cuddy McAllister. The crime scene was gruesome. The laundry room was small, with Cuddy's body lying near the door, face up, surrounded by a large pool of blood. Clothes were scattered everywhere. Socks, shirts, and towels were tossed haphazardly on the floor, some of them soaked in blood. It was clear there had been a struggle. A bloody steak knife, likely the murder weapon, was found a few feet away from Cuddy's body. It had a black ergonomic handle, common in many households, but now stained with clotted blood. The detectives noted the washer and dryer, both covered in spatter, and a few bloody handprints on the doorframe, indicating Cuddy had likely tried to defend himself. Detective Chang immediately began cataloging evidence. She directed the forensic team to take samples of the blood, check for fingerprints, and look for any signs of forced entry. The laundry room wasn't particularly large, so it didn't take long for the investigators to collect evidence. They used special blue lights to search for additional traces of blood in other parts of the house, but it seemed the attack had been confined to the laundry room. Outside, officers canvassed the neighborhood, asking residents if they had heard or seen anything suspicious, but no significant leads emerged. O'Brien focused on the timeline. The couple had been married for less than a year, and according to Lily, everything had seemed fine. However, the signs of a violent argument were impossible to ignore. There were no signs of a break-in, which suggested that Cuddy had possibly known his attacker. As they pieced together the evidence, the detectives began to consider the possibility of a domestic dispute gone horribly wrong. The medical examiner later confirmed that Cuddy had been stabbed 3 times, with the fatal wound being a deep cut to his chest, severing his aorta. The coroner's report indicated that Cuddy likely died within minutes of the attack. Meanwhile, the detectives continued to search the rest of the condo for more clues, but nothing else seemed out of place. The scene, while chaotic, appeared personal. This definitely wasn't a random attack. The first suspect police turned to was Cuddy's wife, Lily McAllister, who had made the 911 call reporting the murder. At 32, Lily worked as a freelance fashion designer and had built a modest reputation in the local creative scene for her bold and unique designs. Her quiet, enigmatic personality drew people in, but many who knew her said she kept much of her personal life private. She had met Cody just over a year before, and their relationship had moved quickly to marriage, surprising some of their friends. During her initial interrogation on November 18, 2019, Lily appeared calm but visibly shaken. She told detectives that she had found Cody's body after returning from a quick morning walk. She claimed their marriage had been mostly happy, though she admitted they had their share of arguments, especially recently. As Detective O'Brien questioned her, Lily became more emotional, but her story remained consistent. She repeatedly stated that she had no idea who could have done this to Cody. The detectives, however, couldn't ignore some red flags. For one, there were no signs of forced entry into the condo, which meant the killer was likely someone Cody knew. Lily also had some bruises on her arms and a small cut on her hand. When asked about them, she said they were from an unrelated accident the day before, but the explanation seemed vague. O'Brien, who had a naturally suspicious personality, found her demeanor odd, especially given the violent nature of the crime. As the questioning continued, the tension in the room grew. The detectives mentioned rumors about an affair between Lily and Rachel, Cody's younger sister. After a moment of hesitation, Lily admitted to the sexual relationship. She explained that the affair had started before her marriage to Cody and had continued even after they weighed. In fact, she admitted she had sex with Rachel the afternoon before Cody's death. This revelation added layers of complexity to the situation, suggesting deep emotional connections intertwined with the turmoil of the love triangle. Lily described her feelings for both Cody and Rachel, emphasizing the passion and intense sexual fireworks she shared with Rachel, which contrasted with the stability and calm Cody provided. The detectives noted the significant implications of this admission, recognizing that Lily's secret sexual relationship could have played a critical role in the confrontation that led to Cody's death. Further complicating matters was the lack of background information on Lily. Police struggled to find any records of her existence before 2015. She had told Cody and his friends that she was from Calgary, Canada, but there were no official documents to support this claim. This led detectives to question whether she might be hiding something from her past, and whether that could have played a role in the crime. Despite Lily's cooperation, the police couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to her story. They pressed her on her relationship with Cody, asking about any recent arguments or tensions between them. Lily admitted they had been arguing about finances and other personal issues, but she denied any involvement in Cody's death. Still, the investigation was just beginning, and while Lily wasn't immediately arrested, she remained a person of interest. Detectives would continue to dig deeper into Lily's past and their relationship, searching for anything that might shed light on the violent act that took Cody's life. The second person the police questioned was Rachel McAllister, Cody's younger sister. Rachel, 26, was a bartender at a trendy downtown St. Jose bar called the Fountain Tap. She was also an aspiring singer, known for performing Taylor Swift songs at local open mic nights. With a rebellious personality and a love for the Bay Area's nightlife scene, Rachel was close to Cody but had a complicated relationship with him. Her fiery temper and history of drug and alcohol use made her a suspect almost immediately. Rachel had also been involved in a secret relationship with Lily before Cody had ever met her, a fact that only came to light during the investigation. She had continued her affair with Lily even after Cody and Lily got married, creating a tangled web of sex and deceit. The sexual relationship between the two women had been passionate but full of tension, and detectives believed this could be a possible motive for Rachel to harm her brother. If Cody found out about the affair, it could have created significant conflict. Rachel was brought in for questioning on the afternoon of November 19, 2019, less than 10 days before Thanksgiving. From the moment she sat down, it was clear she wasn't handling the interrogation well. Her frustration showed as she angrily denied any involvement in her brother's death. She told Detective O'Brien that she loved Cody despite their differences and insisted she would never hurt him. However, her body language told a different story. She shifted nervously in her seat, avoiding eye contact, and became defensive when asked about her ongoing affair with Lily. The detectives pressed Rachel on her whereabouts the night of the murder. She claimed she was working late at the Fountain Tap and then went home to do some pot, but she had no solid alibi to back her up. O'Brien also questioned her about Duke Coleman Kang, her ex-boyfriend with a violent past, who had been seen near Cody's condo around the time of the murder. Rachel admitted she hadn't spoken to Duke in months, but became noticeably tense when his name was mentioned. As police continued to dig into Rachel's personal life, they uncovered her struggles with substance abuse and her financial troubles, which raised more suspicion. Detectives theorized that Rachel's jealousy of Cody's success, combined with the stress of her affair with Lily, could have driven her to a breaking point. While there was no physical evidence directly linking Rachel to the crime, her tumultuous relationship with both Cody and Lily made her a prime suspect in the investigation. The third person police investigated was David Duke Coleman Kang, a 42-year-old felon with a long history of violent crime. Duke had been in and out of prison for various offenses, including drug dealing and assault. He was well known to law enforcement in San Jose, especially around the rougher areas like East Side, where criminal activity was more frequent. Duke's rough reputation and ties to Rachel McAllister immediately put him on the police's radar after Cody's murder. Duke had been spotted near Cody's upscale condo the night of the murder. A neighbor reported seeing him standing near the building's parking lot around 10:30 p.m., smoking a blunt. This sighting raised alarm bells for the investigators, as Duke was known to have had a volatile relationship with Rachel in the past. Duke and Rachel had broken up months before, but their relationship had been filled with arguments, often fueled by drugs and alcohol. Police wondered if Duke, driven by jealousy or anger, could have been looking for Rachel and ended up at Cody's place instead. On November 21, 2019, Duke was picked up by police for questioning. He was calm, almost indifferent, as Detective O'Brien and his partner, Detective Chang, brought him into the station. Dressed in a worn leather jacket and jeans, Duke appeared unaffected by the seriousness of the situation. When asked about his presence near Cody's building the night of the murder, Duke claimed he was in the area to sexually menace a guy about unpaid drug payments, which he said never happened. He insisted he had nothing to do with Cody's death and claimed he barely knew Cody at all. Duke's criminal record, however, made the detectives suspicious. His involvement in drug-related activities and his connection to Rachel created a possible motive. Could Duke have been looking to settle a score or intimidate someone? And things went horribly wrong. Police pressed him hard on whether his presence was related to Rachel or if there had been a confrontation that led to Cody's death. Duke denied it all, maintaining that he hadn't even gone inside the building that night. Despite Duke's criminal past, police had no solid evidence tying him to the crime. His alibi, though flimsy, wasn't easy to disprove. There were no signs that Duke had entered the condo or been involved in the violent altercation that led to Cody's death. While Duke remained a person of interest due to his connection with Rachel and his proximity to the scene, police knew they needed more concrete evidence to pursue him further. On November 24, 2019, nearly a week after Cody McAllister's murder, the San Jose Police Department received a critical break in the case. The weather that Sunday was chilly, with light rain falling across the city, creating a somber mood around the investigation. Detectives O'Brien and Richards were reviewing evidence at the station when a forensic technician approached them with something unusual. While combing through Lily McAllister's MacBook, the tech had uncovered several hidden files containing medical documents, including one that revealed a secret Cody had possibly just discovered before his death. Lily McAllister was born a man and had undergone gender transition surgery years earlier in Canada. The documents, dating back to 2015, showed that Lily had once been a man known as Lyle Dubchenko. This revelation was shocking not only because of the secret itself, but also because Lily had kept this part of her past completely hidden from Cody, who likely had no idea when they married. As police dug deeper, they also uncovered another bombshell. Before her transition, Lily, as Lyle, had actually been married to Cody's sister, Rachel McAllister, while living in Calgary. This tangled web of relationships immediately added a new layer of complexity to the case. Investigators pieced together a possible scenario. Cody had been browsing the laptop when he stumbled upon these documents. Already dealing with tension in his marriage, this discovery likely pushed him over the edge, leading to a violent confrontation with Lily on the night of his murder. With this new evidence, police interviewed Lily again, this time focusing on her past. When confronted with the documents, Lily admitted that Cody had discovered her secret that evening, leading to a heated argument. But according to Lily, while Cody was furious and felt utterly betrayed, not only because she had kept her transition hidden, but also because of her previous marriage to his sister, the argument did not turn violent. Lily claimed she had tried to calm Cody down, but the argument had quickly escalated until Cody left the apartment to calm down. The discovery of this new information was a massive turning point in the investigation. Detectives now believe that Cody's murder was directly tied to his discovery of Lily's past and the emotional turmoil it caused. The police re-examined the crime scene with this new understanding, hoping to find more evidence to support their theory. They also began speaking to Rachel McAllister again to clarify her knowledge of Lily's history and how much she had told her brother. This new evidence gave police a clearer motive and pushed Lily to the top of their list of suspects. On the evening of November 26, 2019, after days of investigation, the San Jose Police Department officially identified Lily McAllister as Cody McAllister's killer. Following the discovery of hidden medical documents revealing Lily's past as a transgender woman and her former marriage to Cody's sister, Rachel, police concluded that Cody had discovered these secrets shortly before his murder. This realization had led to a violent argument in a couple's upscale condo, culminating in Cody's stabbing death. Lily McAllister, 32, had always been an enigmatic figure in the local creative scene. Known for her unique fashion designs and soft-spoken demeanor, she had lived a quiet, seemingly private life since arriving in California a few years earlier. But her secret past as Lyle Dubchenko, a man who transitioned in Canada, had remained hidden, even from Cody, her husband of only a few months. When Cody uncovered this information, his sense of betrayal and rage likely led to the violent altercation that ended his life. Police believed that after Cody confronted Lily, the argument quickly spiraled out of control. In a desperate attempt to protect herself from Cody's aggression, Lily had grabbed a kitchen knife during the struggle and stabbed him in the chest. While Lily would later claim she acted in self-defense, detectives found the situation far more complex, given the intense emotional layers of the relationship and the secrets that had just come to light. On November 27, 2019, police arrived at Lily's condo to arrest her. It was a quiet afternoon, and Lily was at home, still reeling from the events of the past few days. When officers knocked on her door, she didn't seem surprised. According to police reports, Lily was calm as they informed her of the charges, stating that she had expected this outcome. Her demeanor remained controlled as they handcuffed her and led her to the patrol car. Meanwhile, Cody's family, especially his parents and sister Rachel, were devastated by the arrest. Rachel's marriage and subsequent sexual relationship with Lily, both before and after her transition, added another layer of heartbreak to an already tragic situation. The family had struggled to come to terms with the tangled web of secrets and betrayals that had led to Cody's death. Still, the arrest brought some closure to their grief, knowing that justice might be served. With Lily in custody, police had their suspect, and the focus turned to the upcoming trial. The case had quickly become quietly talked about in social media, with headlines speculating about Lily's past and the shocking circumstances surrounding Cody's murder. The trial of Lily McAllister for the murder of her husband Cody began in early February 2020. The prosecution, led by District Attorney Mark Harding, a 45-year-old with a no-nonsense reputation, argued that Lily's actions were deliberate. Harding highlighted the evidence found on Cody's laptop and suggested that the discovery of Lily's transgender identity and her prior relationship with Cody's sister, Rachel, was the final trigger for the fatal confrontation. He painted a picture of premeditation, claiming Lily had gone to great lengths to hide her past, which exploded in violence when Cody learned the truth. On the defense side, attorney Sarah Jane Lobison, 39, took the lead. Known for her empathetic yet sharp style, Lobison claimed that Lily had acted in self-defense. She explained that Cody had become enraged after discovering Lily's documents and began a physical altercation that left Lily no choice but to protect herself. Lobison painted a sympathetic image of Lily, describing her difficult life as a transgender woman and the fear she lived with, particularly from rejection by people close to her. She urged the jury to consider Lily's mental state during the argument. Throughout the trial, Cody's family attended every session. His parents sat in the courtroom daily, devastated by the loss of their son, Rachel McAllister, caught in the middle of the tangled relationships, seen torn, quietly supporting her family but struggling with her complicated feelings about Lily. The emotional weight of the case was evident in their faces as both sides made their arguments. After 3 weeks of testimony, the jury deliberated for 2 days. In the end, Lily was convicted of second-degree murder. The judge sentenced her to 20 years in prison, a decision that some of Cody's family felt was too lenient, given the tragic loss of his life. The defense team had hoped for a lesser charge of manslaughter, but the jury sided with the prosecution's view that Lily's actions, while not premeditated, were far more than just self-defense. The trial left a deep emotional scar on both Cody's family and those in the local community who had followed the case closely through media outlets like the San Jose Mercury News. In the end, justice was served. But the pain of Cody's death lingered. After Lily McAllister's trial in February 2020, the lives of those involved changed significantly. Lily was sentenced to 20 years in prison for the murder of her husband, Cody McAllister. She was sent to Valley State Prison in Chowchilla, California, where she faced significant challenges as a transgender woman in a male prison environment. While some inmates were supportive, others were not, and she had to navigate a complex social landscape. In prison, she found support from some inmates and began participating in educational programs. She focused on bettering herself through classes in art and writing, hoping to share her story one day. However, she also faced discrimination from others, making her time difficult. Rachel McAllister, Cody's younger sister, struggled with the aftermath of the trial. She had been deeply affected by her brother's death and her relationship with Lily. As a local bartender in San Jose, Rachel continued to pursue her dream of becoming a singer. She often performed at small venues around the city, trying to channel her grief into her music. In early 2020, she began therapy to help process her emotions, working through her complicated feelings of loss and betrayal. Rachel also spoke publicly about her experiences on her TikTok channel, sharing her story to raise awareness about domestic violence and mental health. Duke Coleman Kang, Lily's ex-boyfriend, who had initially been a suspect in Cody's murder, faced his own troubles. With a history of violent crime and drug use, Duke continued to struggle with addiction after the trial. Reports indicated that he was arrested again in 2020 for drug possession in San Jose. He was sentenced to rehabilitation, where he attempted to turn his life around by becoming a youth pastor in Nashville. Duke's past haunted him, but he aimed to break the cycle of his previous choices. As time passed, Cody's family remained dedicated to honoring his memory. They established a charity focusing on mental health support, hoping to help others affected by violence. Through their efforts, they found some solace and a way to keep Cody's spirit alive. Twins Brittany and Bethany Ingretza, both 25 years old, were known for their vibrant personalities and dreams. Brittany, a nurturing and compassionate kindergarten teacher, always put others' needs before her own. Bethany, on the other hand, was a creative soul, passionate about her music and spending hours composing and playing her guitar. She was the driving force behind her band, Polka Threat, which blended traditional polka music with indie rock. Unfortunately, like many in their dead-end small Midwestern town, to make ends meet they had to moonlight as strippers under the names Richie Rich and Dennis the Menace. The town of Marengo, Illinois, nestled in the heart of McHenry County, was a close-knit community with a population of just over 7,500 residents. Known for its picturesque landscapes and historic downtown, Marengo seemed like the epitome of small-town charm. The local newspaper, the Marengo Gazette, covered the town's happenings, from high school football games to the annual Pumpkin Festival, which drew visitors from neighboring towns. September of 2006 marked a turning point in the lives of the Ingretza sisters. They had dreams of escaping the confines of their small town, frequently called by the twins the most boring place on earth, and pursuing their passions on a larger stage. Brittany had been saving up money to move to Chicago and enroll in a prestigious teaching program, while Bethany had her sights set on recording an album with Polka Threat. However, their dreams were overshadowed by the harsh reality of their financial struggles. Moonlighting as strippers at the local club, the Velvet Lounge, was a secret they kept hidden from their friends and family. The club, located on Main Street, was a dimly lit establishment known for its late-night entertainment. It was a place where the town's secrets were whispered and forgotten, a sanctuary for those seeking an escape from their mundane lives. We will delve deeper into the events leading up to the heinous crime that shocked the town of Marengo. Stay tuned for more revelations and twists in this tragic tale. On a crisp and cool September day in 2006, the small town of Marengo, Illinois, situated just an hour away from the bustling city of Chicago, was about to be shaken to its core. It was a town where everyone knew everyone, where doors were left unlocked, and crime was something that happened in distant cities or on the evening news. But on that fateful day, Marengo would become the backdrop for a chilling crime that would leave its residents in shock and disbelief. Coral James, a concerned neighbor, had grown worried after not seeing the vibrant and outgoing Ingretza twins, Brittany and Bethany, for several days. She decided to take matters into her own hands and went over to their apartment to check on them. Little did she know that what she would find inside would haunt her for the rest of her days. As Coral stepped into the apartment, a sense of unease settled over her. The air was heavy, and an eerie silence hung in the rooms. She made her way to the bathroom, and there, in the cold porcelain bathtub, she discovered the lifeless bodies of Brittany and Bethany. The sight that greeted her was nothing short of horrifying. The twins' hands were tightly bound behind their backs, and the marks on their necks hinted at a brutal strangulation. The room was filled with an overwhelming sense of tragedy, as if the very walls were mourning the loss of these vibrant young women. The news quickly spread throughout the town, and shockwaves reverberated through the close-knit community. On that fateful September day in 2006, the small town of Marengo, Illinois was shaken to its core by the gruesome discovery of the lifeless bodies of twin sisters Brittany and Bethany Ingretza. The police, led by Detectives Anderson and Ranger, arrived swiftly at the crime scene, determined to unravel the mystery behind this heinous crime. As they entered the apartment, a chilling sight greeted them. The once cozy living space had been transformed into a scene of chaos and despair. Furniture was overturned, belongings scattered haphazardly, and the air was heavy with an eerie silence. It was clear that a violent struggle had taken place within these walls. The detectives meticulously combed through every inch of the apartment, searching for any clue that could shed light on the motive and identity of the killer. They carefully collected fibers, fingerprints, and any other trace evidence that might hold the key to this tragic puzzle. In their search for answers, the detectives turned to the twins' personal belongings. They examined Brittany's kindergarten classroom, where colorful drawings and handwritten notes from her young students adorned the walls. They explored Bethany's music studio, filled with guitars, amplifiers, and stacks of sheet music. The detectives couldn't help but wonder if these passions and connections to the outside world held any significance in the investigation. Outside the apartment, the detectives spoke to neighbors and witnesses, hoping to gather any information that could lead them closer to the truth. They diligently questioned those who had seen or heard anything unusual in the days leading up to the discovery of the bodies. The detectives also reached out to local businesses, searching for surveillance footage that might provide a glimpse into the last moments of the twins' lives. As the investigation unfolded, the media frenzy surrounding the case grew. Local newspapers, such as the Marengo Tribune, dedicated coverage to the shocking crime. Chicagoland's best television news stations, like WGN and ABC7, aired reports urging viewers to come forward with any information they might have. Days turned into weeks, and the detectives tirelessly pursued every lead that came their way. They collaborated with forensic experts, consulted with renowned criminal profilers, and even reached out to the FBI for assistance. The case became a haunting presence in the town of Marengo, with whispers of the twins' tragic fate echoing through the streets. The investigation into the tragic deaths of Brittany and Bethany Ingretza took a significant turn when the police focused their attention on Darren Capletta, a 28-year-old mechanic and Brittany's former boyfriend. Darren's turbulent relationship with Brittany, combined with his history of possessiveness and stalking, made him a prime suspect in this heinous crime. Darren's obsession with Brittany began after their breakup, and he struggled to accept the end of their relationship. Friends and acquaintances recall his volatile temper and his relentless efforts to maintain control over Brittany's life. He would often show up unannounced at her workplace, leaving her feeling frightened and unsafe. The police wasted no time in bringing Darren in for questioning. They hoped to uncover any evidence that could link him to the murder of the Ingretza twins. During the interrogation, Darren's demeanor was tense and defensive. He vehemently denied any involvement in the crime, claiming that he had moved on from his relationship with Brittany. As the investigation unfolded, the police delved into Darren's background, meticulously scrutinizing his every move. They discovered that Darren's obsession with Brittany had escalated in the months leading up to the murders. He had been seen lurking around the twins' apartment building, often peering through their windows. Some witnesses even claimed to have seen him following the sisters as they went about their daily routines. To strengthen their case against Darren, the police analyzed his phone records, hoping to find any incriminating evidence. They discovered a series of disturbing text messages and voicemails that Darren had sent to Brittany in the weeks prior to the murders. In these messages, he expressed his anger and frustration, threatening to harm her if she didn't reconcile with him. The police also uncovered surveillance footage from a nearby convenience store, placing Darren in the vicinity of the Ingretsa twins' apartment on the night of the murders. This crucial piece of evidence further implicated him in the crime. Despite the mounting evidence against Darren, the investigation was far from over. The police continued to explore other leads and potential suspects, ensuring that no stone was left unturned in their pursuit of justice for Brittany and Bethany. As the investigation into the shocking murder of Brittany and Bethany Ingretsa unfolded, the police turned their attention to Roxy Blaine, a 26-year-old co-worker and close friend of the twins. Roxy, known for her caring and empathetic nature, had expressed concerns about Brittany's ex-boyfriend, Darren Capletta, in the past. However, her credibility had been undermined by her occupation as a stripper and her history of alcoholism. In the small town of Marengo, Illinois, where everyone seemed to know everyone else's business, Roxy's reputation had been tarnished. The local gossip mill whispered tales of her wild nights at the strip club and her struggles with addiction. But the police knew that sometimes, the most unexpected individuals could hold the key to solving a crime. On that fateful day in September 2006, the police brought Roxy in for questioning. Detective Anderson, a seasoned investigator with a reputation for getting to the truth, stared intently at Roxy, searching for any signs of deception. Roxy, dressed in worn-out jeans and a faded band t-shirt, sat nervously in the uncomfortable metal chair. She fidgeted with her fingers, her eyes darting around the room. She recounted the countless nights they spent together at the strip club, sharing stories and dreams. She described the bond they had formed, a sisterhood born out of adversity. Roxy's eyes welled up with tears as she spoke of the twins' kindness and the love they had shown her during her darkest moments. The detective pressed further, asking about any potential motives or connections that could shed light on the crime. Roxy hesitated for a moment, her mind racing with memories and possibilities. She mentioned a mysterious woman who had been lurking around the club in the weeks leading up to the murders. She described her unsettling demeanor and the way she seemed fixated on the twins. Detective Anderson furrowed his brow, his mind working to piece together the puzzle. He made a mental note to check security footage from that time, hoping it would provide some insight into this unknown figure. He thanked Roxy for her cooperation and assured her that they would leave no stone unturned in their quest for justice. As Roxy left the police station that day, a mix of relief and anxiety washed over her. She knew that the investigation was far from over, and the truth was still shrouded in darkness. But she had taken the first step in helping to unravel the web of secrets surrounding the murder of her beloved friends. In a shocking turn of events, the investigation into the brutal murders of Brittany and Bethany Ingretsa took a surprising twist. The small town of Marengo, Illinois was left reeling as new evidence emerged, shedding light on a hidden connection between two key suspects. Detectives Anderson and Ranger, leading the investigation, meticulously combed through the evidence, determined to bring justice to the slain sisters. It was during this process that they stumbled upon a startling revelation. Roxy Blaine, the twins' co-worker and close friend, had a secret sexual involvement with Darren Capletta, Brittany's volatile ex-boyfriend. As the investigation progressed, it became clear that Roxy had been concealing her sexual relationship with Darren, adding a layer of complexity to the case. This revelation raised questions about her potential motive and involvement in the heinous crime that rocked the town. The town of Marengo was abuzz with speculation as the news of Roxy's secret relationship with Darren spread like wildfire, fueling public interest and raising even more questions about the motives behind the twins' murders. As the investigation intensified, the detectives began to piece together a timeline of events leading up to the fateful day in September 2006. They discovered that Darren's possessive nature and inability to accept the breakup had driven him to stalk and harass Brittany relentlessly. Roxy, caught in the middle, had become entangled in a dangerous web of deceit and manipulation. The investigation took a sudden turn as the focus shifted to a new suspect, Tom Appelsforth, a 30-year-old musician and close friend of Bethany Ingretsa. Tom, known for his laid-back attitude and easygoing personality, was Bethany's bandmate in the popular local band Polka Threat. The band, which blended traditional polka music with indie rock, had gained a small but dedicated following in the Marengo music scene. Despite being close friends with Bethany, Tom had always carried a torch for her. Friends and acquaintances described him as supportive of Bethany's musical aspirations and never showing any signs of aggression or violence. However, the police had to consider all possibilities and thoroughly investigate Tom's connection to the heinous crime that had rocked the small town of Marengo. Detectives Anderson and Ranger brought Tom in for questioning, hoping to uncover any hidden motives or connections to the murder of the Ingretza twins. The interrogation room was tense as the detectives pressed Tom for information. They carefully probed into his relationship with Bethany, looking for any signs of jealousy or resentment that could have driven him to commit such a heinous act. Tom maintained his innocence throughout the questioning, providing an alibi for the night of the murder. He claimed to have been at a local bar, the Rusty Nail, that evening. The detectives meticulously verified Tom's alibi, interviewing bar staff and patrons who confirmed his presence at the venue during the time of the crime. Despite the alibi, the detectives continued to investigate Tom's background and acquaintances. They delved into his social media presence, looking for any clues or connections that could shed light on his involvement. They also reached out to band members and friends, seeking additional information about Tom's relationship with Bethany and any potential conflicts that might have arisen. In a shocking turn of events, the small town of Marengo, Illinois, was rocked by the revelation of the true identity of the murderer responsible for the heinous crime that claimed the lives of Brittany and Bethany Ingretza. After weeks of tireless investigation, the police finally identified and arrested Darren Capletta, a 28-year-old mechanic and former boyfriend of Brittany. Darren's motive for the brutal killings was rooted in jealousy and resentment towards Brittany's deep bond with her twin sister. Unable to accept their breakup, Darren's anger and obsession grew, leading him down a dark and sinister path. Consumed by feelings of anger and rejection, he devised a twisted plan to exact his revenge on Brittany. On that fateful September night, Darren entered the apartment where the sisters resided. In a fit of rage, he unleashed his fury upon Brittany, suffocating her to death on the living room sofa. But he didn't stop there. Bethany, tragically caught in the crossfire, became an innocent victim of Darren's deranged actions. The small town of Marengo was left in shock and disbelief as the news of the gruesome double murder spread like wildfire. The police, determined to bring justice to the victims and their grieving families, tirelessly pursued the investigation. They meticulously combed through evidence, interviewed witnesses, and analyzed every lead that came their way. The weight of the case and the urgency to solve it weighed heavily on their shoulders as the community anxiously awaited answers. Finally, a breakthrough came when a key piece of evidence linked Darren to the crime. The police, armed with this crucial information, swiftly moved in to apprehend him. The arrest sent shockwaves through the town as the residents grappled with the realization that the murderer had been living among them. The arrest of Darren Capletta brought a sense of relief to the community, but it also served as a stark reminder of the darkness that can lurk in the most unexpected places. In the wake of the shocking murders of twins Brittany and Bethany Ingretza, the small town of Marengo, Illinois was left reeling. The gruesome crime had shattered the community's sense of security and left a void that could never be filled. As the case unfolded, the search for justice became paramount, and the trial of the murderer, Darren Capletta, became a pivotal moment in the quest for closure. The trial began on a somber April morning in the Marengo County Courthouse. Prosecutor Larry Pascoe-Grover, a seasoned legal expert known for his unwavering dedication to justice, presented a compelling case against Capletta. With meticulous attention to detail, Pascoe-Grover meticulously laid out the evidence, painting a vivid picture of the events that unfolded on that fateful night. Attorney Tom Berlin, representing the defense, fought tooth and nail to cast doubt on the prosecution's case. Berlin, known for his sharp legal mind and persuasive arguments, attempted to create an alternative narrative that would exonerate his client. The courtroom was filled with tension as the two legal titans clashed in a battle of wits and rhetoric. Throughout the trial, the Ingretza families sat in the front row, their faces etched with grief and anger. Their presence served as a constant reminder of the lives that had been brutally cut short. As the trial progressed, witnesses took the stand, recounting the events leading up to the murders. Friends and acquaintances of the victims spoke of their vibrant personalities and the dreams they had for the future. The defense called into question the credibility of some witnesses, while the prosecution presented forensic evidence that seemed to point directly at Capletta. After weeks of intense courtroom drama, the jury finally reached a verdict. The tension in the air was palpable as the foreperson stood and delivered the words that would determine Capleta's fate. Guilty. The courtroom erupted in a mix of relief, sorrow, and a sense of closure for the families of Brittany and Bethany. The judge, known for his no-nonsense approach to sentencing, wasted no time in delivering his judgment. Capleta was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. As he was led away in handcuffs, the family of the victims found a small measure of solace in knowing that justice had been served. Following the conclusion of the trial, the lives of those involved in the Marengo, Illinois murder case took different paths. Darren Capleta, the perpetrator of the heinous crime, received his just punishment and was sentenced to a lifetime behind bars. The small town breathed a collective sigh of relief, knowing that justice had been served. For the Ingretza family, however, the pain of losing Brittany and Bethany remained ever present. In the years that followed, they established a scholarship fund in honor of Brittany and Bethany. The fund provided financial assistance to aspiring teachers and musicians, keeping the sisters' dreams alive. Meanwhile, Roxy Blaine, who had been involved with Darren Capleta, faced the consequences of her actions. The revelation of her secret relationship with the murderer shocked the community. Roxy, burdened by guilt and shame, sought redemption by volunteering at a local women's shelter. She hoped to make amends and prevent others from falling victim to abusive relationships. The case of the Ingretza sisters had a lasting impact on the town of Marengo. The community came together to raise awareness about domestic violence, organizing workshops and seminars to educate residents on recognizing the signs of abuse. The Marengo Police Department implemented new protocols to ensure that future cases of domestic violence would be handled with utmost care and urgency. The town of Marengo, Illinois, will forever bear the scars of this tragic crime. The lives of Brittany and Bethany Ingretza were cut short, leaving a community shattered and searching for answers. True crime case files will continue to uncover stories like these, shedding light on the darkest corners of humanity. Our story begins with Olive Parker, a 32-year-old ambitious and driven marketing executive who resided in the upscale neighborhood of Los Olas in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, not far from the Atlantic Ocean. She was known for her intelligence and charming personality, captivating everyone she met. Olive's dedication to her career was unwavering, and she aspired to climb the corporate ladder and make a name for herself in the marketing industry. In July of 2012, the sun-drenched city of Fort Lauderdale buzzed with excitement as Olive's life took an unexpected turn. As the summer heat intensified, Olive's days were filled with meetings at the prestigious marketing firm she worked for, where she tirelessly strategized and executed successful campaigns for renowned brands such as Coca-Cola and Nike. Despite her professional success, Olive's personal life was not without its challenges. Married to Adam Parker, a charismatic and enigmatic man, she told friends their seemingly idyllic relationship, which had once been filled with love and happiness, was now full of cracks and nearing its end. Olive's friends and colleagues noticed a change in her demeanor. The once vibrant and confident woman seemed to be slowly fading away, replaced by a shadow of her former self. Whispers of a troubled marriage and a controlling husband circulated, with rumors of infidelity and deceit. Olive, however, remained steadfast in her commitment to maintaining harmony and balance in her life. Little did Olive know that her pursuit of success and happiness would lead her down a treacherous path. As we dig deeper into the case, we will uncover the shocking events that unfolded, ultimately leading to Olive's tragic demise. It was a scorching hot and humid day in the summer of 2012, the kind of day where the air felt heavy and suffocating. The residents of Los Olas, a posh neighborhood in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, sought refuge from the searing heat in their air-conditioned homes. On this particular steamy night, the tranquility of the neighborhood was shattered by an eerie commotion emanating from Olive Parker's apartment. The sound of screams and shouting pierced the air, causing concern among the neighbors. One neighbor, Patty Reyes de Leon, a retired schoolteacher known for her nosiness, couldn't ignore the disturbing sounds any longer. She peered through her lace curtains, her curiosity piqued. As she strained to see what was happening, she noticed the front door of Olive's apartment was ajar. Mrs. Reyes de Leon's heart raced as she contemplated the possibility of danger. She hesitated for a moment, weighing the risks of getting involved. But her conscience won over, and she decided to investigate. With a sense of trepidation, Mrs. Reyes de Leon stepped out of her air-conditioned sanctuary and made her way towards Olive's apartment. The oppressive heat seemed to intensify as she approached the door, adding to her unease. As she entered the apartment, a wave of stifling heat hit her, causing sweat to bead on her forehead. The living room was dimly lit, the curtains drawn shut, creating an atmosphere of gloom and mystery. Mrs. Reyes de Leon's eyes were immediately drawn to the corpse sprawled on the floor. It was Olive Parker, her once vibrant and ambitious neighbor. The shock of the sight overwhelmed her, and she let out a shriek. Olive lay motionless, her body twisted in an unnatural position. Her once lustrous hair now clung to her sweat-soaked face. The room was filled with an eerie silence, broken only by the distant hum of the air conditioning unit. Mrs. Reyes de Leon's hands trembled as she reached for her phone to dial 911. The dispatcher's voice on the other end was calm and reassuring, but the gravity of the situation hung heavy in the air. Within minutes, the police arrived at the scene, their sirens wailing in the distance. They cordoned off the area, keeping the curious onlookers at bay. Forensic experts meticulously combed through the apartment, collecting evidence and documenting every detail. News of Olive's tragic demise spread like wildfire through the community. The local newspapers and television stations picked up the story, captivating audiences with the chilling details of the mysterious death. Las Olas, once a haven of tranquility, was now engulfed in a cloud of fear and suspicion. Who could have done such a heinous act? Was it someone Olive knew? Or was this a random act of violence that shattered the illusion of safety? The police arrived quickly, showing how serious the situation was. Detective Suarez, who was in charge, and his team carefully looked through the crime scene. They wanted to find any clues that could help them understand how Olive died. The apartment was very clean, which made it even more mysterious. There were no signs that someone broke in. The only sign of violence was Olive's lifeless body on the floor. She had been strangled to death. Detective Suarez started by taking pictures of everything in the apartment. He wanted to make sure he didn't miss anything important. Then, he and his team started searching for fingerprints. They dusted for prints on doorknobs, windows, and other surfaces. They hoped to find a clue that would lead them to the person who killed Olive. While searching, Detective Suarez noticed something strange. There was a broken vase on the floor near Olive's body. He wondered if it had something to do with the crime. He carefully collected the broken pieces and put them in a bag for further investigation. Next, Detective Suarez checked Olive's iPhone and computer. He wanted to see if there were any messages or emails that could be helpful. He found a few text messages from someone named Sophia. Mark seemed angry and jealous. Detective Suarez thought Sophia might be a suspect. Detective Suarez and his team also talked to Olive's neighbors. They wanted to know if anyone saw or heard anything unusual on the day Olive died. One neighbor said they heard loud arguing and screaming coming from Olive's apartment. Another neighbor said they saw a man leaving the building around the same time. Detective Suarez asked for a description of the man and made a note of it. As the investigation continued, Detective Suarez knew he had a lot of work ahead of him. He had to analyze all the evidence and interview possible suspects. He hoped that by doing this, he would be able to bring justice to Olive and her family. Olive's husband, Adam Parker, was suspected of being involved in the shocking death of his wife. Adam, 35, was a lawyer who specialized in traffic accidents, a job often referred to as an ambulance chaser. He was known for his smooth talking and ability to convince people to work with him. However, behind his charming facade, Adam had deep-rooted insecurities and feelings of inadequacy. Adam's behavior towards Olive had raised concerns among their friends and family. He was possessive and often displayed signs of jealousy. Friends remembered instances where Adam would become angry if Olive talked to other men at social events. He would constantly check her phone and email, searching for any signs of infidelity. These possessive tendencies had intensified in the months leading up to Olive's tragic death. The police interrogated Adam extensively, hoping to uncover the truth behind Olive's demise. They questioned him about his whereabouts on the day of the incident and his relationship with Olive. Adam claimed to have been at work during the time of the crime, but the police were determined to verify his alibi. Detective Suarez and his team meticulously examined Adam's phone records, searching for any evidence that could support or refute his claims. They also interviewed Olive's colleagues and friends, hoping to uncover any information that could shed light on their troubled marriage. As the investigation progressed, the police discovered a series of text messages between Adam and a mysterious woman. The messages hinted at a secret affair, providing a possible motive for Olive's murder. The police obtained a search warrant for Adam's office and home, hoping to find further evidence to corroborate their suspicions. Inside Adam's office, the police found a hidden compartment in his desk containing love letters and intimate photographs of him and another woman. The discovery of this secret relationship sent shockwaves through the community and added another layer of complexity to the case. The investigation into Olive's murder was far from over. The police had uncovered a web of deceit, betrayal, and jealousy surrounding Adam and Olive's marriage. As they delved deeper into the case, they would soon discover more shocking revelations that would turn this tragic story into a true crime nightmare. Sophia Shingrix, a 28-year-old graphic designer, found herself under the scrutinizing gaze of the police as they delved deeper into the mysterious death of Olive Parker. Sophia, known for her vibrant personality and creative flair, had worked alongside Olive at a prominent marketing agency in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. As the investigation unfolded, detectives discovered a tangled web of secrets and hidden desires. Sophia had always admired Olive's intelligence and ambition,
but beneath her friendly facade, jealousy and resentment simmered. The police were determined to uncover any motive Sophia may have had for harming Olive. During the interrogation, Sophia's nervous demeanor betrayed her inner turmoil. She hesitantly admitted to a secret romance with Olive's husband, Adam Parker. The revelation sent shockwaves through the investigation, adding
a new layer of complexity to the case. Adam, a successful lawyer known for his charm, had been leading a double life. Behind closed doors, he engaged in a clandestine affair with Sophia, betraying the trust of his devoted wife. The police were astounded by this revelation as it shed light on the possible motive behind Olive's tragic end. Sophia's involvement in the affair only intensified the suspicion surrounding her. Could her feelings of jealousy and resentment have driven her to commit the ultimate act of betrayal? The detectives meticulously combed through phone records, text messages, and email exchanges, searching for any evidence that could link Sophia to the crime. The investigation took a dramatic turn when the police uncovered a series of passionate and explicit messages exchanged between Sophia and Adam. These messages revealed a toxic love triangle filled with deceit and manipulation. The detectives realized that Sophia's motive may have been fueled by a desire to eliminate Olive, removing the obstacle standing between her and Adam. As the investigation continued, the police dug deeper into Sophia's background, uncovering a troubled past marred by failed relationships and a history of emotional instability. They interviewed friends, colleagues, and acquaintances, gathering insights into her character and behavior. But the truth remained elusive. The investigation into Sophia's involvement in Olive's death continued as the police meticulously pieced together the puzzle of this twisted tale. The evidence was mounting, but would it be enough to prove her guilt beyond a reasonable doubt? As the investigation into Olive Parker's tragic death unfolded, the police were determined to leave no stone unturned. Their relentless pursuit of the truth led them to a breakthrough when a curious teenager stumbled upon an abandoned phone in a remote part of Fort Lauderdale. Little did they know that this unexpected discovery would hold the key to unraveling the mystery surrounding Olive's demise. The phone, an outdated model with a cracked screen, was carefully examined by the forensic team. They meticulously extracted every piece of information. The phone's call logs and text messages became the focus of their attention as they sought to uncover any connections to the prime suspects in the case. One particular text chain caught their eye. It was a series of exchanges between an unknown number and Adam Parker, Olive's husband. The messages hinted at a secret arrangement, with Adam offering financial support in exchange for sexual favors. The police were intrigued, realizing that this could be the missing piece of the puzzle they had been searching for. Further analysis of the phone's data revealed a hidden folder containing explicit photographs and videos. These shocking materials depicted Adam having sex with a woman who was not Olive. The woman was later identified as Sophia Shingrix, Olive's co-worker and a person of interest in the case. The police were astounded by this revelation, as it unveiled a web of deceit and betrayal that had been woven behind Olive's back. As the investigation continued, the police pieced together a timeline of events. They discovered that Adam had been paying for an apartment, using Olive's hard-earned money to sustain an illicit affair. However, this apartment apparently was not for Sophia, but someone else. This revelation painted a chilling picture of deceit and manipulation, as Adam had not only betrayed his wife, but also exploited her financially. The police were determined to bring justice to Olive Parker and expose the truth behind her tragic demise. With the newfound evidence from the abandoned phone, they were inching closer to unraveling the dark secrets that had plagued Olive's seemingly idyllic marriage. The investigation into the tragic death of Olive Parker took an unexpected turn when a new person of interest emerged. Ethan Laroney, Olive's ex-boyfriend, became the focus of the police's attention. Ethan, 34 years old, was known for his charming personality and adventurous spirit despite his struggles with drug addiction. Ethan and Olive had a tumultuous relationship in the past, and even though they had broken up, Ethan still held a deep attachment to her. He longed for a chance to win her back and couldn't let go of their shared history. But it was also revealed that Ethan had been secretly financially supported by Adam Parker, Olive's husband, in exchange for sex. The police were intrigued by this connection and wanted to uncover any motives or connections Ethan might have had to Olive's murder. They delved into Ethan's background, speaking to friends, family, and acquaintances to gather more information. One person who knew Ethan well was his childhood friend, Dean Fring. Dean described Ethan as a troubled soul who often found solace in his relationship with Olive. He recalled an incident where Ethan had expressed his desire to be with Olive again, even though she was happily married to Adam. The police also discovered that Ethan had been involved in a series of petty crimes in the past, including solicitation, mostly related to his drug addiction. They reached out to local law enforcement agencies and reviewed surveillance footage from nearby stores to see if Ethan had been in the vicinity of Olive's apartment on the day of her death. To their surprise, the police found a witness who claimed to have seen Ethan near Olive's apartment complex on the day of the crime. The witness, a store clerk, remembered Ethan because he had come into the store that day to buy cigarettes. This testimony provided a crucial piece of evidence that placed Ethan in the vicinity of the crime scene. As the investigation continued, the police obtained a search warrant for Ethan's residence. They meticulously combed through his belongings, looking for any evidence that could link him to Olive's murder. They found a diary in which Ethan had written about his deep love for Olive and his desire to be with her again, even if it meant having illicit sex with her husband. The police also discovered a hidden stash of drugs in Ethan's apartment, confirming his ongoing struggle with addiction. They wondered if his drug use had clouded his judgment and led him to commit such a heinous act. The investigation into Ethan's involvement in Olive's murder was still ongoing, and the police were determined to uncover the truth. They knew that finding concrete evidence would be crucial in bringing justice to Olive and her grieving family. In a shocking turn of events, the truth behind Olive Parker's tragic murder was finally revealed. After an extensive investigation, the police identified Olive's possessive and insecure husband, Adam Parker, as the perpetrator of this heinous crime. Adam's toxic combination of jealousy and possessiveness led him to commit the unforgivable act of murder, shattering the lives of those who knew and loved Olive. As the investigation unfolded, the police discovered that Adam's controlling behavior towards Olive had escalated in the months leading up to her murder. Friends and family members reported instances of Adam monitoring Olive's every move and isolating her from her loved ones. This pattern of possessiveness raised red flags for those who knew them well. Furthermore, the police uncovered a series of incriminating text messages and emails exchanged between Adam and Sophia Shingrix, Olive's co-worker. These messages revealed a secret affair between Adam and Sophia, adding another layer of complexity to the case. The arrest of Adam Parker sent shockwaves through the community, leaving both friends and neighbors in disbelief. The once idyllic neighborhood of Las Olas became a backdrop for a real-life crime drama, as reporters flocked to the scene to capture the aftermath of this tragic event. This case serves as a stark reminder of the dangers of possessiveness, jealousy, and control in relationships. It is a call to action for society to address the issue of domestic violence and support those who may be trapped in abusive situations. The trial that followed Olive Parker's tragic murder in July of 2012 was a significant event. The courtroom was filled with anticipation as the prosecution, led by District Attorney Laird Hopkins, presented a compelling case against Olive's possessive and insecure husband, Adam Parker. During the trial, the prosecution meticulously laid out a timeline of events, presenting evidence that highlighted Adam's toxic obsession with Olive. They showcased text messages, phone records, and witness testimonies that painted a vivid picture of Adam's jealousy and controlling behavior. The defense attorney, Mark Brinsley Coe, fought hard to cast doubt on the evidence, suggesting alternative explanations and attempting to create reasonable doubt in the minds of the jurors. Throughout the trial, Olive's family sat in the courtroom, their hearts heavy with grief and anger. They listened intently to every word spoken, hoping for justice to be served. The media coverage of the trial was extensive, with reporters from prominent news outlets such as CNN and the New York Times providing daily updates on the proceedings. After days of deliberation, the jury finally reached a verdict. The tension in the courtroom was palpable as the forepersons stood up to deliver the verdict. We, the jury, find the defendant, Adam Parker, guilty of first-degree murder. The foreperson announced, their voice echoing through the courtroom. The gasps of disbelief and tears of relief filled the room as Olive's family and friends embraced each other, finally finding a semblance of closure. The judge, presiding over the case, sentenced Adam Parker to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The courtroom fell silent as the weight of the sentence sank in. Adam, once a successful lawyer, would now spend the rest of his life behind bars, paying for the heinous crime he committed. The impact of the trial and its outcome reverberated through the community of Fort Lauderdale and beyond. Olive's tragic story served as a reminder of the dark side of human nature and the devastating consequences of possessiveness and jealousy. It sparked conversations about domestic violence and the importance of recognizing the signs of an unhealthy relationship. After the shocking revelation that the prosecutor and the defense attorney were involved in a secret sexual relationship, the trial of Adam Parker was deemed invalid. Olive's family, already burdened by the loss of their beloved daughter, felt betrayed by the very system that was supposed to deliver justice. They were left questioning the integrity of the legal system and wondering if they would ever find closure for Olive's tragic end. Sophia Shingrix, deeply remorseful for her role in the affair, sought therapy to help her cope with the guilt she carried. She realized that her jealousy and resentment towards Olive had clouded her judgment, leading her down a path she never intended to take. Sophia vowed to honor Olive's memory by making amends and striving to be a better person. As the community tried to move forward, the impact of the trial's invalidation continued to reverberate. People couldn't help but question the credibility of the justice system and wonder if the truth would ever be fully revealed. The case garnered attention from advocacy groups and sparked a larger conversation about the need for transparency and accountability within the legal system. Meanwhile, Adam Parker, once again a free man awaiting retrial, retreated from the public eye. He faced the harsh reality of his actions and the consequences that awaited him. The community kept a watchful eye on him, eager to see justice served and Olive's memory honored. And so, the story of Olive Parker's fatal attraction comes to a close. It serves as a chilling reminder of the depths to which jealousy and possessiveness can drive a person. As we reflect on this tragic tale, let us remember the importance of nurturing healthy relationships and seeking help when faced with toxic situations. In the heart of the Great Lakes region, Lana Tompkins was a beacon of potential and creativity. At 26 years old, she hailed from Michigan's bustling city of Detroit, a place that, despite its economic struggles, remained a hub of artistic and cultural diversity. Lana was a graphic designer by trade, her skills honed at the College for Creative Studies, a prestigious institution known for its contribution to the arts. Her portfolio, a vibrant tapestry of digital illustrations and branding projects, was a testament to her ambition and talent. Lana's roots were firmly planted in a close-knit family. She was the youngest daughter of Michael Tompkins, a dedicated automotive engineer at General Motors, and Susan Tompkins, a librarian whose love for books was infectious. Lana's siblings, elder brother David, an up-and-coming lawyer, and sister Emily, a pediatric nurse, shared a strong bond with her, rooted in mutual respect and admiration. Her personality was a blend of warmth and determination, traits that endeared her to friends and colleagues alike. Described by her peers as the life of the party, she had an infectious laugh that could light up even the dullest of rooms. Yet, beneath her cheerful exterior lay a dreamer with aspirations that reached far beyond the confines of her current life. In the days leading up to her untimely death, Lana was brimming with excitement over her plans to expand her design business. She had recently been in talks with potential clients in Toronto, hoping to tap into the city's thriving art scene, which was abuzz with the upcoming Toronto International Film Festival's announcement of its 2009 winners. Social media platforms like Facebook and Twitter, which were hitting their stride in popularity, were abuzz with her latest designs. Her journey to Toronto was not just a business trip. It was a step towards realizing her dream of becoming an internationally recognized designer. Little did she know, the city that symbolized her future aspirations would become the setting of a tragic end to a life full of promise. On December 1, 2009, as the early winter dusk cloaked the city of Toronto in shades of gray, an ominous chill settled over the bustling streets. The Canadian city, usually alive with the sound of holiday shoppers and the sight of festive decorations, was unaware of the grim discovery that would soon disrupt the seasonal cheer. At approximately 7:45 p.m., the Swiss Chalet restaurant, a Canadian staple known for its rotisserie chicken and comfort food, became a crime scene. Nestled on a busy street corner, the establishment was filled with diners seeking refuge from the biting cold that evening. Among them was Janet Wolinski, a local librarian with a penchant for mystery novels, who had stopped by for a quick meal after a long day at the Toronto Public Library. Little did she know that she would stumble upon a real-life horror that no book could prepare her for. Upon entering the ladies' room, Janet was met with a sight that would haunt her for years to come. Lana Tompkins, a visitor from Michigan, lay lifeless on the cold-tiled floor. The victim was dressed for the winter weather, her scarf and coat a stark contrast to the stillness of her form. A luxury belt, an item far removed from the affordable indulgences typically sold in the nearby Eaton Center's holiday market, was wrapped tightly around her neck. Janet's initial shock quickly turned to action as she suppressed her panic and alerted the restaurant manager, who in turn called 911. The dispatcher, trained for emergencies, guided them through the necessary steps while ensuring that the police were promptly en route. Despite the flurry of activity, Janet remained composed, a testament to her strength even in the face of adversity. As the snowflakes of the season began to fall, casting a serene blanket over the city, the warmth inside the Swiss Chalet was irreversibly tainted by the cold reality of a life extinguished too soon. The Toronto Police Service received the distress call from the Swiss Chalet restaurant at 7:52 p.m. on that frigid December evening. Within minutes, the scene was swarming with the flashing lights of emergency vehicles, cutting through the darkness as they arrived with urgency. The first responders were met with a scene that juxtaposed the festive atmosphere typical of the season. A young woman's body lay in the solitude of the restaurant's bathroom, a place where the jovial chatter of diners was replaced by a deafening silence. Detectives James Keller and Sandra Lee, both veterans of the Homicide Squad, led the investigation. Keller, with his gruff demeanor and a reputation for his dogged pursuit of justice, was well known in the corridors of the 52 Division. His partner, Lee, brought a methodical and detail-oriented approach to the case, her skills honed by years on the force and a keen understanding of the city's diverse communities. The crime scene was meticulously preserved, with the area cordoned off to prevent contamination. Forensic teams donned protective suits as they entered the scene, a procedure that had become almost routine in a city that had seen its share of violent crimes. The air was thick with the scent of disinfectant, a stark contrast to the heavy aroma of gravy and fries that wafted from the kitchen. Lana Tompkins' body showed no immediate signs of a struggle, suggesting she may have known her assailant or been taken by surprise. The murder weapon, a belt from a luxury department store, hinted at a personal attack. Such items were not commonly found in the possession of the average Torontonian. As the forensic team collected evidence, they employed the latest in crime scene technology, including alternate light source imaging and 3D crime scene reconstruction, tools that were just coming into their own at the end of the decade. The meticulous collection of fingerprints and DNA samples was a race against time, with the knowledge that each passing moment could lead the killer further from their grasp. The crime had been committed with a chilling precision that left the seasoned detectives unsettled. As the night wore on, the realization that this case would not be a simple one was dawning on everyone involved. The city of Toronto, normally abuzz with excitement over the upcoming Winter City Festival, was now overshadowed by the specter of a murderer in its midst. As the investigation unfolded, attention turned to Laird Chevalier, a 23-year-old janitor employed at the Swiss Chalet restaurant where Lana Tompkins' body was found. Chevalier, originally from Sherbrooke, Quebec, had moved to Toronto in search of better prospects and was known among his colleagues for his quiet demeanor and punctuality. The young janitor lived a modest life in a small apartment cluttered with architectural blueprints and design magazines, remnants of his abandoned dream to become an architect. A dream thwarted by financial constraints in the global economic downturn of 2008. His social media profiles, sparse and infrequently updated, offered no insights into his personal life, presenting a challenge for the detectives trying to piece together his background. During the interrogation, held in the sterile confines of an interview room at the police station, Chevalier maintained a calm exterior. The detectives, skilled in the art of questioning, probed for inconsistencies in his account of the evening in question. He claimed to have been restocking supplies at the time of the murder, a routine task that left him largely unaccounted for during the critical window. His alibi was met with skepticism. The investigators, aware of the pressures faced by service workers in the city, often highlighted in exposés by the Toronto Star, considered the possibility of a crime of opportunity. However, without a clear motive or evidence linking him to the crime, their suspicions remained unconfirmed. Throughout the questioning, Chevalier cooperated fully, his responses measured and devoid of the defensiveness typical of a guilty conscience. His hands, though roughened by manual labor, showed no signs of involvement in a violent act. The detectives were left to ponder whether his calmness was a facade or a genuine indication of innocence. As the interrogation concluded, the police were no closer to proving Chevalier's involvement in the murder. The investigation would have to delve deeper into the lives of Lana Tompkins and the other individuals connected to the case to uncover the truth behind the tragedy. Nearly 4 days after the tragic discovery of Lana Tompkins, the city of Toronto was shaken once again. On December 5, 2009, Robin Kwan, an 18-year-old high school student, was found dead in the bathroom of a Canadian Tire store on Yonge Street, a bustling retail hub especially crowded during the holiday season. Like Lana, Robin was strangled with a belt that seemed out of place amidst the rows of automotive parts and home essentials, a belt that, upon further investigation, was traced to the same luxury department store chain. Robin, a recent immigrant from Hong Kong, had moved to Canada with her parents in hopes of a better future. She was described by her classmates at Jarvis Collegiate Institute as a bright and ambitious student, her dreams of studying medicine at the University of Toronto driving her to excel academically. Her part-time job at Canadian Tire was a step towards independence and financial support for her education. The investigation led to an interrogation of her coworkers, one of whom was present on the evening of her death. The store manager, a middle-aged man named Douglas Peters, was visibly distraught as he recounted the events of the night. He described Robin as a diligent and reliable employee, her customer service always accompanied by a friendly smile. Social media platforms like Facebook, then at the height of their emerging influence, became a valuable tool in the investigation. Detectives scoured Robin's online interactions for any sign of conflict or distress, but found nothing beyond the usual teenage discourse and aspirations. The police, determined to find a connection between the two murders, questioned Robin's friends and family with sensitivity, understanding the cultural nuances of her community. Her parents, overwhelmed by grief, struggled to comprehend the senseless loss of their daughter, their dreams shattered in an instant. Despite the meticulous interrogation of those within Robin's immediate circle, the police found no clear motive or suspect. The killer remained at large, his or her identity shrouded in mystery, leaving the city's residents in a state of heightened anxiety and fear. The investigation took a pivotal turn on the morning of December 7, 2009. A gray overcast sky loomed over Toronto, a reflection of the somber mood that had enveloped the city since the string of unsettling murders. The crisp winter air was heavy with anticipation as the Toronto Police Service worked tirelessly to connect the dots between the two cases. A breakthrough came when a loss prevention officer from Holt Renfrew, an upscale department store renowned for its curated selection of luxury goods, contacted the authorities. The officer had been reviewing security footage as part of the store's routine protocols heightened during the holiday shopping frenzy. Amidst the footage, a figure caught their attention, a young man purchasing several high-end belts, the same type used in the murders. The surveillance video timestamp coincided with the days leading up to the first murder. The young man's face was clear, his demeanor calm as he made the transactions. The footage was promptly handed over to the police, who disseminated stills to local media outlets, including CP24 and the Globe and Mail, in a bid to solicit the public's help in identifying the individual. The response was swift. Tips flooded in, and the public's vigilance was palpable. Social media buzzed with activity as the images circulated on Twitter and Facebook, where concerned citizens shared information and expressed their unease about the brazen nature of the crimes. Detectives Keller and Lee analyzed the footage, noting the suspect's confidence and the ease with which he navigated the upscale environment. The belts, an accessory to fashion for most, had become an instrument of death in his hands. As the day progressed, the weather took a turn and light snow began to fall, blanketing the city in a deceptive calm. But the police were far from tranquil, as this new evidence presented a tangible lead. The race was on to identify the young man before he could strike again, and with the city on edge, the pressure was mounting to bring the perpetrator to justice. The investigation's urgency intensified on December 9, 2009, as another life was claimed under chillingly similar circumstances. Yaira Dominguez, a 21-year-old single mother and recent immigrant from Holguin, Cuba, was found in the staff bathroom of an A&W restaurant, her life extinguished by the same method, a luxury belt, now a grim signature of the killer. Yaira, who had sought a new beginning in Canada for herself and her young daughter, worked tirelessly at the counter, serving customers with a hopeful smile. Her aspirations to enroll in a nursing program at Ryerson University were fueled by a determination to provide a better life for her child. The A&W on Queen Street, often bustling with locals and tourists alike, was a stark contrast to the quiet tragedy that unfolded within its walls. The police, now grappling with a serial killer, focused their investigation on the individual captured in the Holt Renfrew security footage. The manhunt led them to James Deacon Price, a 17-year-old high school student from one of Canada's most prestigious private schools. Deacon Price, the only child of a prominent Bay Street financier and a socialite known for her philanthropic endeavors, lived a life of privilege that was well documented in the society pages of the Toronto Star. During his interrogation, Deacon Price's demeanor was unsettling. He was neither overtly nervous nor particularly cooperative, responding to the detective's questions with a nonchalance that belied the gravity of the situation. His digital footprint revealed a trail of arrogance, with social media posts that showcased a lavish lifestyle and a sense of entitlement that was out of touch with the economic reality faced by many Torontonians post-recession. The police probed for a motive, delving into Deacon Price's past and his relationships. His peers described him as aloof and often dismissive of those he deemed beneath him. Yet, there was no clear reason why he would target victims like Lana, Robin, and Yaira, women who were strangers to him, each battling their own struggles and chasing their dreams in a city that promised opportunity. As the interrogation continued, the detectives were left to ponder whether Deacon Price's actions were the result of a deeply rooted pathology or a perverse desire to exert control over the vulnerable. The answers, however, remained just out of reach, leaving the investigators to piece together the puzzle of a young man's descent into darkness. Amidst the backdrop of a snow-dusted Toronto, a narrative of privilege and malice began to unfold. By mid-December 2009, the city, usually preoccupied with the festive spirit and the recent Grey Cup victory of the Montreal Alouettes, found its attention riveted on a series of brutal murders. The common thread, a luxury belt used as a garrote, led investigators to James Deacon Price, a 17-year-old student from a prestigious private school. Deacon Price, the progeny of wealth and status, stood in stark contrast to his victims, women striving for betterment amidst the economic aftershocks that continued to reverberate from the 2008 financial crisis. His life, documented in the society pages and on nascent social media platforms, was punctuated by galas and exclusive events, a stark departure from the everyday struggles of Lana Tompkins, Robin Kwan, and Yaira Dominguez. The investigation revealed a chilling portrait of the young man. Despite his seemingly idyllic upbringing, Deacon Price harbored a morbid curiosity. His internet history, scrutinized by cybercrime specialists, unveiled a fascination with the macabre and the mechanics of death, a digital trail that added a layer of complexity to the case. In a coldly calculated manner, Deacon Price had sought out his victims, each selected with a predator's precision. The belts, purchased from high-end retail stores like Holt Renfrew, were not just tools but trophies, selected to satisfy a twisted desire for power and control. It was a desire he confessed to during interrogation, stating with chilling detachment that he wanted to know what it felt like to end a life. The motive, as articulated by Deacon Price, was as banal as it was horrifying: a quest for sensation, an experiment in mortality devoid of any personal vendetta against the victims. He believed his affluent background made him untouchable, a belief that would soon be disproven by the weight of evidence against him. As the pieces of the puzzle fell into place, the detectives faced the daunting task of proving Deacon Price's guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. The city watched, its collective breath held, as the wheels of justice began to turn against a young man who had stepped far beyond the bounds of society's norms. The morning of December 11, 2009, dawned with a brittle clarity over Toronto, the city's iconic CN Tower piercing the sky of unbroken blue. The metropolitan area was still reeling from the revelations surrounding the high-profile case that had dominated headlines in the Globe and Mail and the incessant chatter on talk radio stations like CFOB. The Toronto Police Service, armed with incontrovertible evidence and a confession, prepared to make an arrest that would resonate through the corridors of power in the city. In the affluent neighborhood where James Deacon Price resided, opulent homes were adorned with tasteful Christmas decorations, a stark contrast to the somber task at hand. The young suspect, heir to a family legacy of wealth and influence, was apprehended at his family's stately residence, a place that had been featured in the glossy pages of Toronto Life magazine. The arrest was executed with precision, the culmination of countless hours of investigation by a task force determined to see justice served. Detectives Keller and Lee, accompanied by uniformed officers, approached the Deacon Price home as the first light of day reflected off the freshly fallen snow. The suspect, confronted with the reality of his situation, displayed a flicker of surprise before his expression settled into one of resigned acceptance. The reaction of Deacon Price, who had so cavalierly confessed to his heinous acts, was one of detached acknowledgement, a far cry from the arrogance he had exhibited in his online persona and in the interrogation room. As he was led away in handcuffs, the gravity of his fate seemed to settle upon him, a stark departure from the invulnerability he had once assumed. Meanwhile, the families of the victims, who had been notified of the impending arrest, experienced a tumult of emotions. Relief mingled with sorrow, the reality that nothing could bring back their loved ones setting in. The arrest, while a closure of sorts, was also a reminder of the gaping wounds left by the loss of Lana, Robin, and Yaira. As the news of the arrest spread, the city of Toronto breathed a collective sigh of relief. The imminent threat was contained, but the scars left by the actions of James Deacon Price would linger in the city's collective memory for years to come. The trial of James Deacon Price commenced in the spring following a winter that had seen Toronto gripped by the chilling narrative. The old City Hall Courthouse, a Romanesque revival building that had stood as a symbol of justice since the late 1800s, was the stage for a legal battle that would capture the attention of the nation. The media, from CBC News to the smaller local outlets, were assembled, their cameras and microphones poised to document every development. The prosecution was led by Elizabeth Chester, a formidable figure with a reputation for her incisive courtroom tactics. At 45, Chester was a seasoned prosecutor, her career defined by a string of successful convictions. She approached the case with a steely determination, framing Deacon Price as a predator who had exploited his social status to carry out his crimes with a chilling sense of entitlement. The defense was in the hands of Jonathan Hale, a defense attorney known for his eloquent arguments and charismatic presence in the courtroom. Hale, at 50, had made a name for himself representing some of the city's most challenging cases. He contended that Deacon Price, despite his confession, was a product of a society that glorified wealth and neglected the mental health of its youth. Throughout the proceedings, the courtroom was heavy with emotion. The victims' families, present at each day of the trial, sat with a dignified composure that occasionally gave way to tears as the details of their loved ones' final moments were laid bare. The public gallery, often filled to capacity, listened with rapt attention as witnesses recounted the events leading up to the fateful discoveries in December 2009. As the trial progressed, the city followed the unfolding drama, the case becoming a topic of heated discussion on platforms like Twitter, where the hashtag Deacon Price trial trended for weeks. The trial not only questioned the morality of the accused, but also held up a mirror to the societal divisions and disparities that had allowed such a tragedy to occur. The courtroom was hushed as the trial of James Deacon Price reached its climax. After weeks of intense deliberations and testimonies that had been scrutinized by legal experts and armchair analysts alike on forums and in the comment sections of the Toronto Sun, the moment of reckoning had arrived. The city, still under the shadow of the atrocities, awaited justice for Lana, Robin, and Yaira. Elizabeth Chester, Her arguments, grounded in the stark reality of the evidence, had painted a portrait of a remorseless killer in Deacon Price. The defense, led by Jonathan Hale, had sought to humanize the accused, emphasizing his youth and the psychological complexities that may have led to his actions. The jury, faced with the weight of their civic duty, retreated to consider the fate of the young man whose privileged life had taken such a dark turn. The verdict was delivered on a day that saw the streets of Toronto bustling with the usual cadence of city life, the conversations of passers-by punctuated by the latest hits playing from the storefronts of HMV and Virgin Megastore. Guilty on all counts, the words echoed through the courtroom, a solemn affirmation of the justice system's resolve. Sentencing followed, the judge imposing a life sentence without the possibility of parole for 25 years. The punishment, while severe, sparked debate across the city's diverse neighborhoods and in the opinion columns of the Globe and Mail. Some argued that the sentence was too lenient for the gravity of the crimes, while others pondered the effectiveness of retribution over rehabilitation. For the victims' families, the sentencing brought a measure of closure, though the verdict could not fill the void left by their loss. Their reactions were a blend of relief and sorrow, a complex tapestry of emotions that reflected the irrevocable impact of the crimes. The verdict's ripple effects extended beyond the courtroom, igniting conversations about the societal implications of the case and the nature of justice. As the city moved forward, the legacy of the trial remained, a stark reminder of the fragility of life and the profound consequences of one individual's actions. The conclusion of the trial marked a new chapter for the city of Toronto. As the winter of 2009 became a memory and the cityscape bloomed with the arrival of spring, the community sought to rebuild and find a sense of normalcy after the harrowing events that had unfolded. The bustling streets, once the backdrop for a narrative of horror, slowly returned to their former rhythm, the vibrant pulse of Canada's largest city undiminished. The families of Lana Tompkins, Robin Kwan, and Yaira Dominguez faced the daunting task of moving forward without their loved ones. Their grief was a private affair, each finding solace in different ways, some through advocacy and speaking out against violence, others in the quiet remembrance of the lives so cruelly taken. The pain of loss was a constant companion, but so too was the strength they found in their communities and in each other. Detectives Keller and Lee, the faces of the investigation, received commendations for their work. Yet the accolades did little to erase the images and testimonies that would linger in their minds long after the case was closed. They continued their service, their resolve strengthened by the knowledge that their efforts had brought a measure of justice to the bereaved. As for James Deacon Price, his conviction and subsequent incarceration became the subject of continued media interest. True crime podcasts and television specials analyzed every facet of the case, from his privileged upbringing to the psychological profile that emerged during the trial. In prison, Deacon Price became another inmate, his notoriety a stark departure from the life of luxury he had once known. The broader community grappled with the implications of the case, discussions about mental health, societal privilege, and the criminal justice system taking center stage in university lectures and coffee shop debates. The murders had left an indelible mark on the city's consciousness, prompting reflection on the vulnerabilities and inequalities that existed within the urban tapestry. As years passed, the case of the James Deacon Price remained a cautionary tale, a reminder of the darkness that can lie beneath a facade of normalcy and the enduring quest for justice in the face of senseless violence. The case of the Nepo baby serial killer serves as a grim reminder of the darkness that can lurk behind a facade of privilege. It's a story that shook Toronto and one that true crime case files will never forget.